Going to get started. This is a staff meeting of the Hamilton County Board of County Commissioners. It's December 2nd, 2025. It's a lovely snowy day out there. Thank you all for making it in. I know for some of us it was a challenge. We've got a lot on our agenda here today, so we are going to move through it as efficiently as possible. We do have some proclamations here, though, at the top that we're always glad to celebrate. So the first item is a proclamation recognizing LISC of Greater Cincinnati. I know there are some in the room, and I'm going to allow you to introduce yourselves as you come forward. But before you do that, we would like to read through the proclamation in recognition of your work. And we'll do it. Okay. All right. We've got a proclamation in recognition of LISC Greater Cincinnati. Whereas the Local Initiative Support Corporation, or LISC, of Greater Cincinnati has for decades been a trusted partner in advocating equitable development, building strong neighborhoods, and creating opportunities for residents across Hamilton County.
And whereas LISC Greater Cincinnati has worked collaboratively with community-based organizations, local government, philanthropy, and residents to mobilize resources, strengthen capacity, and drive investments that benefit our county's jurisdictions. And whereas through initiatives in affordable housing, small business development, community safety, financial stability, and resident leadership, LISC has played a vital role in ensuring that all Hamilton County residents can thrive.
And whereas LISC Greater Cincinnati has invested more than $275 million in public and private investment to strengthen community-supported, resident-led solutions and help to expand opportunities for inclusive economic prosperity, including a $9 million investment in home repair programs. Keep going.
Yep.
Whereas on December 3rd, 2025, LISC of Greater Cincinnati celebrates its 25th anniversary, marking a milestone in its ongoing commitment to building a more just, resilient, and thriving Hamilton County through years of impact and partnership.
Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Hamilton County does hereby recognize and commend the Local Initiative Support Corporation of Greater Cincinnati for its leadership, vision, and unwavering dedication to strengthening the fabric of Hamilton County's communities and advancing equity across the region, and does hereby proclaim December 3rd, 2025 as LISC Greater Cincinnati Day in all of Hamilton County. Please come forward if you don't mind. Most recently, we've had this great partnership with LISC to try to advance our lead-free program, such an important program to make sure kids are safe in this community, because we know what the impacts of early exposure to lead are. And so we are so grateful and so blessed to have you in the community to partner with so that we can advance those dollars from the state and make sure that the kids that you have served through that rehab and renovation are as safe as possible in their homes. So thank you so much for the partnership. Commissioner Summer-Dumas, any comments before I turn it over?
Thank you so much. I think you've said it all, but also in the proclamation, it talks about the $9 million investment in home repair. People are still calling about that. We knew there was a need, and you guys filled the need, so thank you.
Commissioner Reese?
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you for the recent partnership, but more importantly, I remember when LISC made an announcement years ago saying they're coming to Cincinnati, and you all have been just an outstanding asset, and you've allowed us to be able to be nimble and change what the needs are, and just really want to thank you for presenting to us what some of the needs are and how do we respond to it in a quick manner. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for being here. Oh, no, please say a few words. Oh, no.
I talked to you all enough. Good morning. I'm Kristen Baker. I'm the Executive Director of LISC Greater Cincinnati, and we just really want to thank the commissioners for this recognition. We're really honored and thrilled to partner with you all in the community and around the county and to continue to advance our common goals together to make this a really wonderful place for everyone to live. So thank you. I have with me Valerie Daly, our Director of Programs, and Julie McGuire, who's our Assistant Program Officer. We're a small team, but but we do a lot, and we really value our partnership with the county. So thank you for this recognition
Thank
today.
you so much. And we're going to ask for a photo, so can you please come up here, and we'll give you the proclamation. Don't move at all. There we go.
Let's see.
One more. Thank you. I love this jacket. Fantastic. Thank you. All right. So we've got one more proclamation. This is a proclamation. I don't know if this individual knows about this proclamation. Perhaps, I don't know. He's smiling, so perhaps. So Michael Patton is leaving the county for greener pastures. He has been with the county for how many years, Michael? 32 years. Let's give that a round of applause. So most recently, Michael has been the director of the Jobs and Family Services, and it is a challenging role because there are so many needs in this community and so many kids that are at risk. And it is a daunting task to take that department and make sure that the employees are serving the kids in this community the best they can. And Michael, I know you've done that particularly since you rose through the ranks and became the director with such a robust knowledge base about what JFS does. And so we are so grateful for your service to this county. The citizens are better off because you have been in service to this county for 32 years. And so we wanted to do a proclamation in your honor. I know that you are going to make a presentation later, so we're going to celebrate first and then talk about that later. We're intentionally bifurcating these two things. So I am going to start off and read the proclamation honoring Michael Patton upon his retirement from the Hamilton County Job and Family Services. Whereas Michael Patton has served 32 years in Hamilton County, beginning his career in November of 1993 as an eligibility technician and advancing through roles such as job coach, team leader, and section chief, overseeing multiple divisions, and since 2016, overseeing child support, building services, and fatherhood initiatives.
Can you come up here to the podium? I'm just gonna, so people can see who we're talking about. I know we're gonna take a picture, but I want you to be on the hot seat. And I heard Madam President say you rose to the ranks. I wrote down roasted the ranks. When did you? But I'm gonna move forward because I really don't approve of this. But I understand, we'll be able to say some comments a little later. Whereas on January the 12th, 2022, Michael was appointed Director of Hamilton County Job and Family Services, becoming the first African American to hold the position in the history of the agency, a significant milestone for Hamilton County Job and Family Services and the broader community. And whereas Michael has faithfully and conscientiously served Hamilton County Job and Family Services for 32 years, during which period numerous initiatives were implemented and enhanced through his leadership that will continue to have a growing impact on Hamilton County.
Whereas Michael has championed innovative and inclusive programming, notably strengthening support for fathers through the establishment of the Fatherhood Collaborative. This is reflective of his commitment to restoring and supporting parental involvement beyond the traditional roles. Whereas through his decades-long career at Hamilton County Jobs and Family Services, Michael has demonstrated authentic leadership, equity, inclusion, and a deep commitment to the service of Hamilton County's children and families in need.
Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Hamilton County does hereby recognize and express its profound appreciation to Michael Patton for his exemplary service, leadership, and lasting contributions to community and organization for the past 32 years. Be it further proclaimed that the Board of Commissioners does hereby extend its sincerest congratulations, along with best wishes for continued success, good health, and fulfillment in future endeavors, and does hereby proclaim December 2nd, 2025 as Michael Patton Day in all of Hamilton County. All right, Michael, so while we've got you at the podium, we're still going to turn it to the commissioners first and then allow you to say a few words. Commissioner Somero-Dumas.
Thank you so much. And we said 2022, it seems like just yesterday, I don't know, but 32 years is a long time. And I just have to say, you know, being a social worker and watching you work, you're not a social worker, but you've been everything else, and watching you work to formulate a great environment for our young people and all of those that you serve has been, these words are not enough. The impact that you've had on Job and Family Services in your short time as director is phenomenal. I will never forget it. And so I know how important it is to kind of go away and do some other things. So even though I say I don't approve it, I do approve it. People are wondering, when am I going to go away? But I just thank you so much for what you've done. And you just went in there and you left no stone unturned. And I certainly appreciate that. And I know the families do also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Director Michael Patton. Well, we're going to start with your position. Jobs and Family Services is our largest department that the county board oversees, and the only director position that we as a board make the decision of who's going to lead it. And so when I arrived here, that position became available, and you applied for it, and our board, based on your credentials, we made history as the first African American to ever lead this department, dealing with children and seniors, foster kids, etc. And we entrusted it with you, and you've done a great job. Part number 2, though, is the messaging and how you hold yourself. As a Black male in a time when young African Americans only see negativity, a lot of times, 90% of what they see on television is negative of Black males. You see fathers not in the homes, you see the crime, and it becomes sometimes hopeless. But your position and your leadership and who you are went beyond Hamilton County Jobs and Family Services, because you walk the walk, not just talk the talk. They were able to see you come out of the neighborhood and come into an organization like Hamilton County. And Hamilton County had always been this inclusive in 285 years, and see you work from the bottom, work your way up to the top of the highest of that department. And I just think we can't even explain how many kids have probably looked at you and say, I can be Michael Patton. How many young Black men said, I can't give up, I can be a good father. How many people said, I can be a director. So you went beyond just the position, but the day-to-day, which you did a good job. But I think what you presented and how you carried yourself as a father, a husband, and a Black male in leadership in organizations. I know you love your Kappa Alpha Psi. Going to college, going to school, you have been an inspiration. And then teaching fathers how to be fathers. I don't think we could even measure something like this on a proclamation, but I just wanted to tell you thank you for leading through your own life and being an example. And who knows, there's a Michael Patton watching right now that's 12 years old that says, one day I'm going to be the director, and one day I'm going to do what Michael Patton did. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Michael. Please say a few words.
Thank you for that recognition, first of all. Sorry, I'm a little emotional, but it's where I started. My time, my effort was all into making JFS the best place it could be for staff, for families who we serve. Thank you, appreciate it. Sometimes you just need a napkin or tissue. But no, I think what I want to say is that it's just been an honor to lead the organization the last 4 years. An honor to work there. It made a way for my family. Gave me opportunities that I didn't know I was capable of getting. And I just want to say thank you to the board, folks that have supported me along the way in this endeavor, in this career. It's been an honor, so thank you very much for the recognition. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much, Michael. And please come up. We're going to get it.
Sure.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I don't know, Jeff, if you wanted to make a comment to Michael, because I know
Yeah.
what you said when he first started out, what you were going to do.
Well, to get back to your point, I have not yet approved of this either. I don't know that I want. No. No, I appreciate the opportunity to comment on this. I mean, Michael and I have talked extensive amount over the years that he has been director, and Michael came to me. Must be 8 months ago, maybe, Michael, when you first were thinking about moving on, and this is the type of position you have done so much in the 3 years that you have been there. As we talked about, I've seen multiple directors come and go from JFS, and everyone's got their own personal stamp and their own personal legacy that they leave in this organization. And Michael, yours will be second to none in terms of the accomplishments that you have made in the organization, both on the programmatic side, everything you've done with the Fatherhood Collaborative Initiative, your work overseeing the innovation within the organization, overseeing the customer service improvements, overseeing really the work that has been done solidifying the relationship between the leadership of of the JFS organization and the workforce. I think maybe more than anything will be what people remember Michael Patton for within the organization, and just building that bridge between. I mean, before you started, it was common, over at JFS for people to say, "Oh, what does the county want to see? What is the county doing?" And recognizing that JFS is part of the county, and you have built that bridge between what was the county and JFS to make sure everyone understands JFS is the county, even down to the move that we're getting prepared to make to the Bond Hill community, and making sure that JFS not only was a part of that move, but really leading that effort. Just the other day, JFS spearheaded the work everyone met out at the crime lab in the coroner's office to say, hey, we're JFS, we're the largest department in the county. We want to bring everyone together who's going to be out at that Bond Hill building so that we can all meet each other, learn from each other, and figure out how we can work best together. And the fact that happened is a culture that you engendered within that organization. So I can't thank you enough for the position that you are leaving the organization in. As much as searching for the new director is a lot sooner than I would have hoped, but I am so thankful that you get the chance now to take what you have done in the organization and go off and enjoy yourself. Apologies to Bridget, right, who's going to have to now find something for you to do. but I know you're going to find ways to keep yourself busy and active in the community, because I just know in your heart there's no way that you're going to be able to remain still. So best of luck to everything you do, and to all the accomplishments that you're going to have from this point forward.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Please come up, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, our next item is a public hearing. This is the Hamilton County 2026 budget hearing. So we have a number of speakers cards for this item, and I know we've got some people online too. First, we're going to have Jeff make the presentation, and then we'll move into public comment.
Thank you, commissioners. And I'm going to go through once it's pulled up here, I'm going to go through a very abbreviated version of the presentation I provided when we released the budget and recommended budget in early November. I will again just say at the start that for folks who may be watching at home, the recommended budget that you're going to see, the slides you're going to see is the recommended 2026 budget. This is not a budget that the county commissioners have yet approved. So as I've always said, if there are complaints, comments on this budget, those should be directed to the administration. The board has not yet acted on this budget. So with that said, just as the board is aware, approving the budget is one of the most substantive actions the board takes every year by law. The commissioners must pass a balanced budget every year to fund the various mandated functions of county government. The all funds budget this year totals $1.375 billion. The general fund portion of that budget is balanced at $402.4 million. This is an increase from 2025 of approximately $12.7 million, or 3.3%. Spurred by the fact that growth in revenues has flattened, inflation, wages, and core service demands continue. Our pandemic relief funds are expiring, so there are some services out there that the community has become invested in, that we're looking for ways to continue. And there's also a very uncertain state and federal fiscal environment that could ripple into the county budgeting world as well. The departmental budget requests that came in at the beginning of this process exceeded our available revenues by approximately $60 million. We reduced that gap as far as we could through our budget staff, who I want to thank. And I won't name everybody, but John Brugan, Rob Wagner, and all of the staff of the budget office who worked with our departments to help reduce that budget gap. But while requests continued to exceed the available revenues, we then wound up establishing target budgets for each department to hit. And I will say that the requests that we received while they were $60 million higher than available revenues, they were not radical requests. They were not most of the times new programs, things that people would not be otherwise accustomed to. These were requests to do those things that departments and elected officials in the county feel are necessary to accomplish the basic mandated services of county government: operating the county jail, operating the court system, managing elections, answering 911 calls, doing the basic economic and community development work within the county, running the crime lab, processing building permits, issuing relief for veterans, those types of things. Those are the things that the county does. If you are a resident in the county, we're likely not the ones picking up your trash, but we are the ones that are running the elections. We're likely not the ones, if you are outside the city of Cincinnati, we are not running the EMS and fire, but we are the ones who you reach when you call 911. So the county is responsible for a lot of these big systems, and that was mostly what we saw in their request as well. The budget does recommend one primary new revenue source within the recommendation, and that is a 1 mil increase to the property transfer tax. That is estimated to generate approximately $4.7 million. I'm recommending that the first $3.7 million of that go to support general and mandated functions of the county, with the additional $1 million of that new fee going annually to support a county contribution to affordable housing efforts in the county. This graph simply shows that in all areas, the request is the middle line. The blue is the 2025 budget. The dark green is the recommended budget. This simply shows that the trend that, for the most part, in all functions of the county, requests came in higher than the current budget. And at the end of the day, we are funding most of the mandated services of the county at a level flat to slightly higher than the 2025 budget. But for the most part, this is a relatively flat budget. The 2026 budget goals were to support personnel and infrastructure, stabilize mandated services, and to continue progress on board policy initiatives. So the first of those, supporting personnel and infrastructure, the budget provides a 3% general wage increase, as well as a modest amount of funding for deferred capital maintenance. And I'm going to just go through these fairly quickly, Commissioners. In terms of stabilizing mandated services, the budget seeks to ensure that funding for mandated services is retained even at levels below, sometimes substantively below their requests. And that includes those functions mandated by the Ohio Revised Code, public safety, judicial services, election services, et cetera. And additionally, Commissioners, the budget seeks to retain funding for those initiatives which, even if not mandated by the Ohio Revised Code, are extremely important to the fabric of our community, and in many cases are supported by board policy direction. These would be things related to housing, economic development, community programming, even services as we get into functions like public safety. We've talked all the time about the fact that the Ohio Revised Code might mandate that we perform certain public safety functions, like operating a correction facility or a county jail. It does not necessarily say that we're supposed to run that, or that we have to run that in a way that establishes best practices for reducing recidivism and provides those wraparound services to make sure that people that enter that facility leave the facility less likely to come in. And that's what we've been trying to do through the county budget. So we've tried to retain as much of those, what we would call non-mandated but critical services, as we possibly can. There are some significant risks within this budget. Obviously, reduced revenue growth. We've seen the plateauing of sales tax. Property taxes represent a lower percentage of our revenues now, but we know that there are headwinds against property taxes, even some of the things that have occurred at the state level to reduce the potential growth of county property taxes. Even if they may be things that the board might support from a policy perspective, are still going to have downward pressures on the county from a future revenue perspective. We always face departmental spending, staffing pressures as departments look to make good on what they need to do to accomplish their mandated services. Fortunately, in 2025, departments have done a pretty good job of staying within budget. I think we've just seen the message through the budget process that they continue to face increased service demands. We have levy pressures, and we'll hear about some of that in a later presentation today, but some of our most critical social service levies levies that are otherwise constitute general fund mandated services. These levies face pressures that we need to ensure ways to right-size these levies through initially through spending restraint to ensure that the general fund does not need to subsidize these levies. But that is something that we face the prospect for in 2026. We also have federal regulatory changes, things like SNAP and Medicaid, that otherwise have the potential to ripple through to the general fund as well. In the end, commissioners, the budget's balanced. It represents a modest increase to 2025. It does maintain a healthy reserve at roughly 15%, continues investment in the county organization's people, infrastructure, and technology. The budget funds the primary mandated functions of the county, even if at lower than request, and continues funding for development partnerships within local communities in accordance with board policy. With that, commissioners, we do have a hearing today that we're kicking off. We have another hearing coming up on Tuesday, December 9th at 6 p.m. at the Board of Elections. And with that, commissioners, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you. And as some of you may know, we've already had the budget presentation from Jeff and had our opportunity to look through the budget, ask questions ourselves. Today's an opportunity for you to ask questions or to advocate for something that you see in the budget. So we're grateful that you're here. This is one of two public hearings. This is during, obviously, our regular meeting, and then we have one in the evening at the Board of Elections, as the administrator said. So we welcome the opportunity for you to participate in this process with us. I've got a number of speakers' cards, and so I'm going to do the ones in person first and then get to the ones on Zoom after, in recognition that we've got a lot on our agenda, so the public comment is probably related to the budget, but could be related to something else, but we're going to take everybody at the same time just for efficiency's sake. So our first speaker is Kathleen Brinkman. You have the pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes. Good morning.
Thank you, commissioners. You have publicly and correctly promised that you will take action to ensure ethical county government. The county budget is a primary opportunity for you to keep that promise. The county prosecutor, a mandated public service, has the greatest power in the county criminal legal system to ensure that police investigations and county prosecutions are thorough, lawful, and ethical. I was a prosecutor for 24 years and a defense attorney for 15 years. I know that a prosecutor has the power to train and demand thorough, lawful, and ethical investigations and prosecutions by her office. Prosecutor Connie Pillich has promised to do that. For a prosecutor to use her power effectively, she must have enough attorneys and support staff, give them manageable caseloads, and train them to demand of themselves and police thoroughness, lawfulness, and ethics. I urge you to approve her requested budget amount so that she can do that. She has educated herself since she took office, and she knows what funds are needed to keep that promise you made to the community and that she makes. One of the ways she has identified as necessary to keep the commissions and her promise for ethics in government is the Conviction Integrity Unit, or CIU, that her requested budget will fund. Her attorneys must have the duty to examine evidence and how it was obtained to ensure that charge is based on thoroughness, lawfulness, and ethics in both investigation and prosecution. They must have the authority to decline to prosecute if those are not met. The duty of a CIU, that Conviction Integrity Unit, is to prevent and correct wrongful convictions of innocent people and disproportionate charging and sentencing. The budget process goals this year include a commitment to robust funding for public safety and the judicial system, including the prosecutor's office. I urge you to approve the prosecutor's requested budget, no less, to keep your promise of ethical county government and your budget goal of protecting public safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Jens Rosenkrantz. Good morning. Got the pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes.
So my name is Jens Rosenkrantz. I'm the board treasurer and vice chair of Artworks. So I'm here to thank you for your past support and also to ask for your continued support. Since 1996, Artworks in Hamilton County have worked hand in hand to create opportunity through art. What began as a youth employment initiative has evolved into a nationally recognized model for creative workforce development, transforming lives, strengthening neighborhoods, and enriching public spaces across the country. Through decades of collaboration, Artworks has connected the county's investment in youth and community development and tangible outcomes, paid creative jobs for young people, mentorship for professional artists, and vibrant artworks that have become landmarks of civic pride. As Artworks approaches its 30th anniversary, we remain deeply committed to serving Hamilton County residents through creativity, collaboration, and opportunity. In today's climate, when nonprofits, artists, and young workers are navigating unprecedented challenges, our partnership with Hamilton County is more important than ever. So for the last 30 years, Artworks has employed 7,000 artists, including, and most importantly, 4,200 youth apprentices ages 14 to 24. So I want to thank you for your past support and ask for continued support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Latanya Chichester. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity for me today for me to speak. My name is Latanya Chichester. I am the program manager for the Building Futures program at the Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio. Building Futures is a pre-apprenticeship program designed to prepare individuals for high-demand, high-wage careers in the construction trade. Today, we are asking for $200,000 in administrative grant support. This grant will help with the program coordination, compliance reporting, and participant support. These funds ensure continuality, accountability, and quality delivery. Since March 11th of 2024, Building Futures has delivered 5 full cohorts of achieving 97% graduation rate. And cohort 6 is currently underway and on track to graduate 21 additional individuals in January of 2026. Every graduate has the opportunity to join a registered union apprenticeship. This is with one of the 15 skilled trades affiliated with the Cincinnati Building and Construction Trades Council. The return of investment for Hamilton County is clear. Our graduates are entering careers, not just jobs, earning an average wage of $31.37 per hour plus union benefits. That means increased tax revenue, reduced reliance on social services, and a stronger skilled workforce. Building Futures is not an expense, it is an economic development strategy. For our participants, the impact is transformational. They gain credentials, financial stability, and a real pathway forward. Many come in facing unemployment or limited opportunities. They leave with skills, confidence, and careers. As I close, I ask again for the $200,000 in administrative grant support to cover essentials that restrict funding cannot with our program, because we invest in people, we invest in Hamilton County for sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Leslie Mooney. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners, Administrator. My name is Leslie Mooney. I am the Executive Director of Blink, and I'm here to advocate for keeping flat funding for the Large Tourism Event Grant from 25 to 26 at $1.25 million at least. Obviously, this is one of the county's relatively smallest line items, but one that carries some really incredible economic impact, as I'm sure you know. For instance, just in 2024 alone, Blink attracted an estimated 2.3 million people in attendance to Cincinnati and to Hamilton County. On average, those visitors spent about 2 days at Blink, including about 20% of the 2.3 million people who visited from outside of the 15-county MSA. The non-local direct spending was $71.5 million, and local spending, non-local direct spending was $71.5. Local spending was $126.5 million, and that's direct spending. And again, 96 jobs created just directly, including artists from 15 countries, as well as many local artists, union workers from right here in Hamilton County, and arts organizations.
Perhaps most importantly, Blink is a free and accessible event that attracts an audience from every demographic. Fully funding this line item in the budget to at least 2025 levels will help events like Blink, Cincinnati Music Fest, and perhaps others to continue to bring people to Hamilton County to spend their money and their time here in our fair county. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kristen Shrimflin. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for your service to our county. My name is Kristen Shrimplin, President and CEO of Women Helping Women, and I'm here to affirm our commitment to this county and to underscore why divert support is not just important, it's life-saving. Women Helping Women is the largest response organization to survivors of domestic violence in Southwest Ohio. It's one of the region's most effective intervention strategies. It provides immediate trauma crisis response after a 911 call in partnership with 39 law enforcement jurisdictions, and this covers more than 85 neighborhoods. The outcomes are clear and consistent. Big picture. Since 2018, when Divert launched, we have responded to over 11,000 survivors and 10,000 children. Each of those have received 6 wraparound services and 5 community coordinated referrals. But here's the number I want you to remember. 0. 0 of those 11,000 survivors and their 10,000 children have experienced domestic violence homicide. Contrast that to Ohio. We just saw a 38% increase in this state for domestic violence homicide. We respond to those who are most in need when they're experiencing grave harm. Over half of those we show up and support have experienced strangulation. We're a strong investment, fiscally and in terms of safety. Divert works. It saves lives. It reduces strain on law enforcement. It ensures that those who are most at risk, primarily women and children in this county, receive expert intervention when it matters most. Thank you for prioritizing safety.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tiffany Tucker. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here. I'm Tiffany Tucker. I'm representing the Urban League, the Building Futures program. Today we are asking for $200,000 in administrative grant support to cover essentials that are restricted, that restricted funding cannot cover, such as program coordination, compliance reporting, and data management. Building Futures is more than a training program. It's a lifeline for residents who want a chance at a better future. Every graduate represents a story of resilience, someone who moves from uncertainty to stability, from surviving to thriving. But the success you see in the classroom doesn't happen by chance. It starts behind the scenes. We are currently holding our 6th cohort with 21 participants set to graduate this January. We also have a 97% graduation rate. Without this support, we risk slowing momentum at a time when demand for skilled labor is soaring and families are counting on us. Your investment will keep the engine running. We have had the opportunity to assist individuals with barriers such as housing, employment, and increased economic stability. So with your assistance and your funding, this will help support those families. And thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Gabe Davis. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Gabe Davis, and I'm here on behalf of the Ohio Justice and Policy Center to urge you to fund Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office's Conviction Integrity Unit. This is not just a budget line. It's a promise that justice in Hamilton County will be fair, accountable, and rooted in truth. Across the country, CIUs have transformed how prosecutors approach justice. They do more than just correct wrongful convictions. They protect civil rights and serve as engines of good government. They operate with transparency and independence and a mandate to address not only innocence claims, but also cases of excessive punishment and other forms of manifest injustice, because justice does not end at conviction. The Ohio Justice and Policy Center fights for this principle and for a system that values truth over finality. The CIU embodies these values by providing a structured and transparent process to investigate innocence claims using rigorous standards. But we can and must go further. A truly effective CIU should also review sentences in terms of imprisonment that shock the conscience, as well as cases of incarceration where fairness is being compromised, even if guilt has been established. Because justice is not just about whether someone committed a crime, it's about whether the punishment fits and whether the process was just. And here's the reality. While in Columbus, Ohio's legislature is passing wasteful and ineffective laws that do nothing but increase penalties, here in Hamilton County, we have the opportunity to inject life into the part of law enforcement that is all about getting it right, saving taxpayer dollars while protecting the innocent and freeing those who are disproportionately and thus wrongfully incarcerated. This is smart justice, and it's the kind of leadership our community deserves. Funding this CIU is an investment in integrity. It strengthens public trust, prevents future errors, and ensures that Hamilton County leads the way in building a justice system that is fair, intelligent, and redemptive. And let's be clear, public safety depends on public trust. When communities believe law enforcement is committed to fairness and accountability, cooperation increases, legitimacy grows, and everyone is safer. By investing in a robust CIU, you send a clear message that Hamilton County will pursue truth, correct injustice, and uphold the highest standards of fairness. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andrew Saltzbrunn. Good morning.
You got my last name right too, so thank you.
Very good.
I'm Andrew Salzbrunn, co-founder of Blink, and well, I'm sure you guys are really familiar with the event. There's a simple truth. Blink isn't a festival anymore. It's one of Hamilton County's most powerful economic engines. Every time that we do this, we bring in well over $100 million of impact, as my colleague Leslie Mooney stated. We fill every hotel room in the region and give small businesses a weekend that they can rely on. There's no other cultural event here that performs at this same level. Just a quick fun fact to illustrate that, in 2024, our last edition of Blink, Blink delivered over 2 times the economic impact of Taylor Swift, which we all know is probably one of the highest bars in live entertainment. So the other simple truth is that Blink is now a national brand. On a regular basis, cities all over the country call us asking how we built it and can we help. But the reality is it started here, it belongs here, and it reflects the best of this county. It's important to understand the impact of your support too. Your support does more than just fund art, it signals stability. As the festival continues to grow and get larger, the costs continue to increase. And when the county invests, major sponsors that we're approaching stay in, private dollars multiply, and when public support drops, it weakens the entire ecosystem. So here's the good news. We want Blink in 2026 to stay world-class and fully accessible and free to every family in this region. The bad news is that every 2 years, the expense of Blink continues to increase. Cost of technology, cost of public services, inflation, et cetera, et cetera. Simply put, we cannot continue to provide that world-class experience without maintaining the county's level of support. So my humble ask is keep investing in Blink. It protects the incredible cultural asset. It delivers undeniable economic return, and it keeps Hamilton County at the center of something the whole country is watching. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Jason Kunkel. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners. Good morning. My name is Jason Kunkel. I'm the incoming president-elect of the Realtor Alliance of Greater Cincinnati, and I'm here today advocating for the interest of homeowners, both current and future. For nearly 3 decades, Hamilton County residents were told that they could rely on a 30% property tax rebate. Yet only twice has it been granted, and year after year, the promise goes unfulfilled. Reducing the rebate to just 4.5% at a time of soaring valuations is not only financially harmful, it is unfair. It effectively breaks a 30-year promise and forces homeowners to absorb the consequences of budget pressures they did not create. And coupling that reduction with a $1 transfer tax increase makes the situation even more burdensome. Homeowners will see the costs escalate without receiving any real value or benefit for the taxes they paid. That is not a sustainable or equitable approach to balancing the county budget. We hear from homeowners every day. seniors who feel trapped in homes they can no longer maintain, young families who are already stretched thin, and longtime residents who feel like they are being priced out of neighborhoods they built. These proposals worsen that pressure. They will limit mobility, discourage downsizing, and deter new buyers from entering the market. So we respectfully ask you, do not balance the county budget on the backs of homeowners. Honor the 30% tax rebate commitment, reject the transfer tax increase, and work with us on broader, more stable revenue solutions that do not unfairly target the people trying to build lives in Hamilton County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Heather Korp. Close?
That's okay. It's a cough.
Cough. Yep.
Just like a cold.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak here today. I am Heather Koff. I am the chair of our advocacy committee at the Realtor Alliance. I'm also a local full-time realtor working with home buyers, sellers, investors, and developers every day. I truly appreciate the time to speak today, and I understand that your job is difficult. I'm here to highlight the economic consequences of reducing the property tax rebate, especially paired with the proposed transfer tax increase. Together, these changes create a serious threat against Hamilton County's economic forward momentum. As Jason shared, for 3 decades, the commissioners have had the option to provide predictable and meaningful relief to homeowners with the full property tax rebate, yet that only 2 years that's been granted. When families keep more of their income, they spend it locally on goods and services, and that spending fuels the economic activity that keeps Hamilton County going forward. A sharply reduced rebate removes that disposable income from tens of thousands of households, and when household spending tightens, the local economy feels the ripple effects immediately. Real estate and construction together make up nearly 17% of Ohio's GDP. Every transaction supports a network of professionals and local businesses, and every new home built generates at least 3 jobs in our region. Layering a reduced rebate with higher transfer costs adds friction to this entire ecosystem. Investors hesitate and development slows, and it will inevitably reduce the long-term revenue the county relies on. These are not theoretical concerns. They are predictable economic outcomes when you increase the recurring and transactional costs on property owners. As a full-time active realtor, I hear these frustrations regularly when we have clients relocating to Cincinnati and the Hamilton County property taxes are significantly higher than Northern Kentucky, Indiana, and other areas. Again, we know your process is difficult and hard. We urge you to maintain the full property tax rebate and avoid the additional costs that undermine housing, investment, and development. Only a diversified revenue strategy and one that is not disproportionately carried by property owners will help strengthen competitiveness and grow our tax base. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That is all I have by way of cards that are filled out other than the Zoom. Okay, all right. Okay, and before we get to those, I also, and I'm sure we all have received emails in our office related to this public hearing and budget priorities, so I'm going to submit those for the record. So if you would pass those down. All right, let's get to the folks that are online. Larry Falcon, I have you first.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you able to hear me?
We are. You've got the pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm here to speak on the MSD budget. Thank you for the opportunity. I wish I was there today. The weather made it difficult. I want to encourage you to adopt the large parking lot runoff charge, which is something that is not in MSD's proposed budget, but should be. After all, the people who are asking you today for more money and not indicating where you should get it from, I'm happy to be the first one to suggest an available revenue source that you should tap into. Before going into detail on that, I want to thank MSD for a couple of the proposals that are in their budget. One is eliminating quantity discounts on the sewer bill, which reduces corporate welfare and assists ordinary ratepayers. Also, redistributing I&I costs within their budget does the same thing, relieves some burden on ordinary ratepayers. The large parking lot runoff charge was first proposed by MSD in their May 5th memo to you. They called it disincentivizing excessive impervious area and wet weather runoff, a very pithy title. They explained it to you when they did their presentation to the Board of County Commissioners in July, and yet they did not include it in their budget proposal. The benefits of this parking lot runoff charge is reducing sewer backups, all the sewage that ends up in people's homes, reducing sewer overflows, and reducing burden on ratepayers. So it's a real win-win in terms of better service at less cost to the ratepayers. MSD says, I had an opportunity to speak to them in the last day or two, that they'll be coming to you in the first quarter with an implementation plan and timeline. I would say it's a good idea. The Sierra Club Miami group, which I'm on the executive committee of, has endorsed the idea, but it's not real until it's in the budget. There are lots of things that are discussed as proposals that never come to fruition. And if MSD supports it and the citizens support it, the way to make it real is to put it in the budget. And so I'm asking the Board of County Commissioners to endorse this idea, to estimate 2026 income from the idea, to provide for 2026 expenses. MSD says they're going to do the implementation work for this proposal out of existing resources as an additional duty for already on board staff. And they say they're going to go slower because they don't have funding for it. They're just going to squeeze it out of their current budget. I say if we're serious about it, estimate the revenue, estimate the expenses, put it in the budget, and then we know it'll happen.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Devon Gassett.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Dave Van Gassett, President of the Board of Directors of the Realtor Alliance of Greater Cincinnati, representing more than 5,500 real estate professionals across Hamilton, Butler, and Warren counties. I am here because of the proposed $1 transfer tax increase and the reduction of the property tax rebate from 30% to 4.5% would create significant and unnecessary disruption in our local real estate market. Realtors are on the front line of almost every home purchase and every small commercial deal. We see exactly how fragile today's buyers and sellers already are. High interest rates, low inventory, raising insurance premiums, and record high valuations have pushed many families to the edge of affordability. A transfer tax increase hits them at the worst possible time. It raises the costs of moving, discourages listings, shrinks mobility, and suppress inventory even further. We estimate that every $1,000 in additional transaction costs knocks thousands of Ohio households out of the market. This tax does not just target wealthy buyers, it hits first-time home buyers, seniors downsizing, and modest income families trying to move closer to work, childcare, or school. Realtors are also deeply concerned that lowering the property tax rebate breaks faith with residents who were promised meaningful relief. Homeowners deserve the full 30%. We urge you to reject this transfer tax increase and restore the promise of the rebate. Realtors want to partner with you on sustainable revenue options that do not harm families, transactions, or the market that fuels so much of our regional's economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other people online, Christy? Okay, no other comments online. All right, well, thank you very much. Thanks all of you for coming in and participating in this process. It's been a diversity of comments on various topics, and we're very, very grateful that you've brought these things to our attention. The process looks like these 2 public hearings that we have, we will also be going back and forth amongst the commission offices. As you know, we can't talk to one another individually. We have to go through our chiefs of staff, which puts a lot of burden on them. But this is how we try to figure out how to balance the budget and try to address some of the things that you've brought to our attention. So more to come on that. Jeff, what is the date by which we hope to pass the budget?
Commissioner, excuse me. The 2 options before the board, the first time I think when the board would have the chance to pass it might be December the 11th. But we have targeted December the 18th really as the outside date for wanting to get the budget resolved. Else we go into the holiday week. But so 12/18 would be the outside date, but the board would have an opportunity before then as well.
Okay, very good. Please feel free to reach out anytime if you need any more information related to the process. All right, thank you all for being here. We are going to move on to our next item. And commissioners, we've already had a chance to comment. I assume we want to move on. The next item is the property tax rebate consideration. Jeff, I know that you've got a very short presentation on this, and then we will.
I do, commissioners. So, Christy, I don't know if you can. So, commissioners, I will provide again a very abbreviated overview of the PTR recommendation this year. Which is the recommendation for 2026. First, just a bit about the PTR. So especially for folks watching at home, there may be folks here, and certainly the board are a bit more educated on this specifically, but for someone who might just be tuning in for the first time, wanting to understand what this is about, a bit about the PTR. The property tax rebate is funded from the 1/2 cent sales tax, which funds many of the county's riverfront-related obligations, such as debt service on stadium construction, annual operating and capital payments for stadiums, the pilot payments to the Cincinnati Public Schools, and what we refer to as the property tax rebate, or the PTR. In total, that 1/2 cent sales tax brings in just north of around $100 million annually. The PTR is a percentage of that annual sales tax revenue, which is carved off and allocated back to homeowners in the form of property tax relief. So when we say a full 30% PTR, we're referring to 30% of the annual sales tax revenue that comes into that fund. The 30% does not mean 30% off your property tax bill. It simply refers to the percentage of the sales tax revenues in that fund that we're allocating in that year towards property tax relief. And I just bring that up because we still to this day have a lot of people. It's a confusing topic. We have a lot of people, some that came in just a couple of weeks ago and came on this floor and wanted someone to point out on their property tax bill where they were receiving a 30% credit on their property tax, and we had to explain to them that that's not exactly how it works. It's when they hear the word 30%, it's 30% of the annual sales tax revenue in that fund. So the full, as we said, full 30% of PTR would be about $32.8 million in 2026, depending upon sales tax growth. The board approved a 30% in 2025, a 12.4% in 24, and a 10.5% in 2023. Trying to get this to click, and it's not. Christy, could you mind advancing that one slide, please? Okay, so the county did provide a full 30% in 2025, which was $31.44 million. The administration recommended last year a smaller PTR, but also indicated that a full PTR in any one year was feasible, just not sustainable in the long run. So we did a full PTR last year. Following that, the fund balance in the Riverfront Sales Tax Fund was reduced from 85% of MADS, or maximum annual debt service, to 48%, roughly between 47 and 48%. And that 85% of MADS, or maximum annual debt service, is the reserve level that we have discussed with the board that makes sense to have as an adequate reserve. We are now substantively below that level. That's important because the fund balance in this fund is the only source of security for this fund. We project that depending upon how revenues come in next year, a full PTR in 2026 would essentially eliminate the fund's reserve. And we think that rebuilding reserves in 2026, following the full PTR last year, is important for several reasons. First, as the board is aware, we've talked about this, the reserves are really the only buffer between the legal obligations in this fund and the general fund. I think from an administrative perspective, we would prefer to recommend a full PTR every single year. However, our primary concern has been ensuring that the county's general fund, which pays for sheriff's deputies, election workers, 911 operators, does not ultimately need to support the operations of Paycor Stadium or Great American Ballpark, especially when the general fund is as strained as it is. Second, our reserve in this fund is the lowest that we have in our reconciled record, and as we indicated, is well below the county's policy goal for this fund. And finally, we talked about replenishing reserve, and we think that replenishing reserve this year is a very prudent strategy for this fund. We just issued bond anticipation notes for the renovation of Paycor Stadium. The sooner we take those notes out with a full bond issuance, the sooner we get out of an interest-only type of financing and can start paying down that debt quicker, which leads to ultimately to savings to the taxpayer in that fund. In terms, just for some context, here's a visual synopsis of PTRs provided over the past 15 years or so. And recognizing that this history goes back well before then, but you can see that the board has in fact provided full PTRs on several occasions, going back to 2011. You can further see that it's not abnormal that following a full PTR year to follow that with a couple of years of rebuilding reserve, which is what I'm recommending for 2026. So, commissioners, that's a brief synopsis of the 2026 PTR recommendation. Just wanted to use this time to set some context for that. I'm happy to answer any questions, or certainly defer to the board for deliberation and comment.
Thank you very much. I do want to note that we are on a deadline to pass this today, or pass a resolution today, per the county auditor. And so that's why this has come before us today for a vote. And we had some conversation at a previous hearing about the property tax rollback. Hey, Christy, I'm going to ask you to put that slide back up with the graph where it goes up and down dramatically, that one. So it's interesting to see this history of the PTR because every year we struggle with this question on what is an adequate amount to give folks relief through the PTR. And so I just want to, as I always do, provide just a little bit of a historical perspective here. Voters passed the sales tax in the 90s with an unrealistic promise by the then county commissioners of a 30% PTR every year after that was passed, not having any idea if the revenues would be adequate to accommodate that, which they have not been. And so a promise was made many, many years ago. The promise could not be kept. And so we are left holding the bag here every year as we see that revenue relatively flat, and we can't accommodate what people expected to receive per previous promises by others. So every year we've tried to honor the spirit of the PTR without risking the health of the Riverfront Stadium Sales Tax Fund. And as you just saw, that fund, we have a board policy about that fund being at 85%. We are not at 85%. We're closer to 80 or 48%. So we are well below what we as policy directors intended to have in this fund. So that presents a challenge. As Jeff said, the operations and maintenance of both riverfront stadiums are paid through the sales tax fund. Capital improvement projects at both of the stadiums are paid through this fund. The annual debt service on the cost for building the 2 riverfront stadiums and maintenance is through these funds. And the pilot to the Cincinnati Public Schools comes from this fund, as does the PTR. So we have to make, it's a balancing equation. It's a math equation that we do every year to figure out how much of a PTR we can give to the taxpayers and still retain a fund that is adequate to address all of these needs that I just listed out. So the current balance in the stadium fund is at a 15-year low, as was indicated. A full PTR would essentially drain the balance, so bankrupt the fund. We did a full PTR last year, and that's part of this reason we're in the situation we're in this year, right? Because we did 30% last year, and so now we're in a position to not be able to do that again, and then it jeopardizes what we can do in future years. And so, again, this creates this challenge. And in the past, and this, for me, goes back to my days serving with Todd Portune and Chris Monzel, because this comes up every year, we wanted to create a situation where we had the advised balance, and our financial people have advised this 85% balance, by the way. But we wanted to provide something at a certain level and make sure that there was a slight increase or more of an increase every year as we could afford. And so we wouldn't be in this situation that this graph represents, which is such instability in this fund, and it's confusing, and there's no predictability here. And so if we were to have stuck to that, we would have started relatively low, but been able to gradually build, and so that people would see a slight increase every year as we go while we maintain a balance that supports all the things that are obligated through the fund. We have not done that, as you can see, and so, and you know, I voted for some of these myself, and so I'm not casting blame, but just suggesting that because of these actions, we're in a position now where if we do this one more time, we're bankrupting the fund. And that puts us in a real challenging situation because the backstop to the fund is the general fund. And you just heard a budget presentation about the general fund and all of these folks coming in for very important things, by the way, that are currently funded or they wish to have funded through the general fund, and we simply won't be able to afford it if we use that fund as a backstop to this. And so it creates real pressures kind of county-wide when it comes to how we are dealing with these finances and some of the challenges. All of that said, I am the first to recognize that we want to provide relief to taxpayers, to homeowners that are paying too much in property taxes in many cases. And we have been dealing with that issue ever since the reappraisal. A lot of people saw significant hikes in their property taxes. It's something that we have talked about, that we've been trying to deal with. I actually served on the governor's task force trying to come up with solutions for homeowners so that they can stay in their homes and have reasonable rates for taxes. And so we made 20 recommendations. They're all dependent, though, on the legislature's actions. And so the legislature picked up some of them, certainly not all of them. Some of them talked about an expansion of the homestead, a circuit breaker to provide immediate relief to homeowners. And the state would pay for that relief, as they have historically in the past, and not pass that down to us because we simply can't afford to provide the relief, as you can see. And so we made these recommendations. They have not picked up those, but they have picked up one. And this is House Bill 335. It talks about capping the growth of our inside millage, the county's inside millage, to the rate of inflation. That is something, I think, reluctantly, we were supportive of, and I don't want to speak for the others. I will say I was supportive of, knowing that we're going to take a hit, right? That means a reduction to county finances if we limit our growth to the rate of inflation. However, in doing that, you preclude these high jumps for property owners in their taxes. And so it's something that we have said we are willing to do, rather the legislature has said you are going to do. And so that is going to limit our capacity to grow our revenue in that fund. That's okay. It provides the relief we're all looking for taxpayers, but I don't want it to go unsaid that the county is not doing its part by way of relief. We are trying to provide relief, particularly to those that saw the significant increases by way of House Bill 335. And so there are many other ideas out there. I hope the legislature picks up more of those ideas. A lot of this, by the way, is related to the county, but really related to others that benefit from property taxes, primarily school systems. And so I don't want to suggest that the county is the only beneficiary of property tax. We are certainly not, nor are we the primary beneficiary of property taxes. As you saw through the budget presentation, property taxes make up some of our budget, but not the bulk of our budget. So I just wanted to offer that by way of context. The administrator has recommended 4.5% PTR this year, hoping that if we're once again in this position, as you saw by the graph, where we did 30% last year, and so now we're in a position to do less this year because we simply can't afford to bankrupt this fund. And so this 4.5 is very conservative, I would admit. I am hopeful that if we were to pass that this year, we put ourselves in a position where we can once again gradually increase the PTR so that we don't find ourselves in a position where we're bankrupting the fund or providing less and less relief as the years go. So those are my comments to this. It's a very frustrating topic, as you might imagine, because we have to deal with it every year, and we are all living under this burden of a promise that we did not make. Our predecessors made it. It was irresponsible then, and it's irresponsible now. And so it is. It's just not in the county's interest to bankrupt this fund. So those are my comments. I'm going to turn it to you, Commissioner Summer-Dumas.
Thank you. Just a few comments. And Jeff, you did tell us last year that if we did the 30%, it would not be sustainable. And we see here that is not sustainable. As was said earlier, we're trying to fulfill an unrealistic promise. I don't know why we can say the Bengals lease was terrible, the worst lease ever, but that part that has the 30% PTR in there, that's great. What they did was, it was a setup to try to have the new board, whichever new board it was, to be confined to that 30% without looking at the landscape of where we were financially. So it was definitely unfair. I understand that our property owners need relief. I'm a property owner. And I like, Jeff, what you said about the full PTR is 30% of revenues from our sales tax growth, which would be 32.88 million. And we can look at the report you gave earlier. Our reserve is going down. It's not going up. And so I do not have tunnel vision where my only effort is to try to provide relief to our homeowners, but we have to provide relief, and it'll be coming up later. Our children's levy fund is down. It's really down a lot. Our seniors levy is down. We don't know about anything coming in the future, and not another pandemic, hopefully, but we don't know what's going to happen in the future where we're going to have to undergird other departments. Nonprofits are getting their funding reduced. HUD is reducing housing. So all around me, there are reductions that are going on. And we, as a fiscal agent, have to be able to undergird, as I said earlier, some of these other entities. And because of that, let me just say this one other part that I wanted to bring up. I know 4.5 does not seem like a lot, I mean, compared to 30%. But we have to be able to forecast what's going on in the future. And I just don't want to be in the position. We were so proud of the homeless population was going down, and now it's going to go back up, as I said, about HUD funding. So it's so much around us that's going to happen that some we know about, other things we don't know about. But I don't want to sit here with my hands tied and can't support these other agencies, entities. And so as you heard earlier, the people that spoke out, they all have their special needs. And I'll say this again, housing is extremely important. We put lots of money into affordable housing, so it is important to me also. But to try to make sure we have something left in our reserve, in our budget, if we have to give out assistance to other entities. So I'm going to be in favor of the 4.5%, excuse me, PTR, because it looks like that's all we can afford right now, and then look in the future for a higher amount if possible. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you very much. Let me say that last week, this was the first time it was presented and talked about. And this week, on Tuesday, I think it was Thursday, or the week before Thursday, and we were gone for Thanksgiving. And now this week, people got a chance to talk, and we vote at the same time. The week that I was out, when it was presented, that I found out they were going to present it, I had to be rushed into the emergency surgery, so I wasn't here. In fact, some of my doctors have said I shouldn't be here today, but they're going to see it on TV. What made me come in today, because while I was in the hospital for over a week and had a situation that could have been fatal to my life, I had nurses that took care of me. On the TV tube, the news came on about property tax while I was there. And this particular individual had no idea my real identity in terms of what I do for a living. And they looked at the TV and said, wow, I can't afford it. I'm gonna lose my house these property taxes keep going up, up, and up. While I was there, hoping that I could be alive and go home and be with my family for Thanksgiving. Then I had to go and go get my blood drawn. And the gentleman that was drawing my blood said to me, Commissioner Reese, I hope you go down there and stand up for us. Man, I've had my house for 35 years, but now they're trying to take my house because I can't afford these property taxes, and I'm tired of hearing about all this stadium stuff. And he was mad at the original people that had put the stadium in and was one who had voted the person he thought responsible out. Now here he is with a needle getting ready to go in my hand. And I said, well, I'm going to see. The doctor said, I got to rest. I'm not supposed to get there. He said, man, I just hope you get there. Even if you lose the fight, can you please just stand up for us that are out here? With that being said, yes, please, thank you. You're welcome. With that being said, do you have anything else you need to give him? Yeah, you have anything else for Jeff? Does he have any? Okay. Okay. Well, can I finish because I can't stand up, unfortunately, and walk when other people are talking right now. So he asked me to come down here, if I could make it, to stand up for him and so many others. Then I had a lady check my blood pressure. And she said, boy, these property taxes are killing me. We just can't afford to keep going up, up, up. She said, I'm a big-time Bengal fan, but I just can't afford to lose my house. I would choose my house over stadiums. So that's what made me come down here today. Not necessarily to win the fight, but to stand up for so many people that have been left out. Now, we got two sets of talking points. And I've had some time to listen to some past meetings, and there seems to be some double talking based on what the subject matter is. Now, we had the banks present some photos and what we gonna do, and $800 million. $800 million. Put tables and tents and chairs and music and alcohol and clapping. We need to move forward with that. Oh man, no one talked about fiscal responsibility during that debate that I brought up. I want to be clear, and it's okay to have a difference of opinion. Commissioner Driehaus, you have indicated in the Business Courier that because we did 30% last time, which you voted no, is the reason that we're in this predicament. What I want to say is that it was promised 30 years ago. It was 24 years before I even got here. And we were down at single digits for almost 24 years. Single digits for the property tax rollback. So what was the purpose then? I wasn't here introducing 30% then. I wasn't even elected. And they were in single digits back to the homeowners with the same talking points. We can't afford you, homeowners. But we kept the promise to stadiums. With stadiums, we brought all the budget people and experts and all this and said, we can do it. We must keep the commitment to stadiums. We must keep the commitment to 9 home games. But to 200,000 homeowners, we say it's fiscally irresponsible to the people that's paying the tax. We even allowed the Bengals to be exempt from sales tax. And then you want to show me a graph, Mr. Aluda, I appreciate it, but they're exempt from paying into the graph. Maybe that's the reason it's not working. But I never saw that graph when we were doing the negotiation of the stadium. Maybe someone should have said, we need to hold up. We need to rethink this. We need to get a Denver deal where the Denver is paying for their stadium instead of giving all the taxpayers paying for it. No one put a stop sign up until it was time for the homeowners. So it's like having an envelope. And on this one, taxpayers, okay, it's this group of, we'll do these talking points. Well, it's irresponsible. Let's put the map up, and we can't afford it, and it's going to go bankrupt. Banks and stadiums. We need to move forward. $800 million is a good deal for moving forward. Oh, we've got to move forward. We need a hotel, hundreds of millions of dollars. That's a great deal for that. Oh, yeah, this deal is a good deal, $800 million for the Bengals lease, and it's going to expire at the same time as the Reds lease, but this is a great deal. Let's go have champagne. Let's toast it up. So either, how can you be rich over here and broke over here? I'm confused. How can you be fiscally responsible knowing the Bengals lease gonna cut out the homeowners? You fiscally responsible over here, and over here when you want to do something for the homeowner, by the way, I'm gonna show you this gentleman. Inquirer doing a special on these people. This gentleman, he grew old in his house. Taxes and rising costs threatened to force him out. He doesn't matter. Why is this guy, why does he not matter? Why should he lose everything? He's unimportant. He's fiscally irresponsible, but the banks, the stadiums, the hotels, we got the money. We're rolling in money, baby. Over here to him, well, everything's going up. So too bad for this guy who worked his whole life, has a house, trying to hold on, 73 years old. His house is 135 years old. After a property value reappraisal in 2023, the value of Mr. Combs' house jumped from $27,120 to $181,260, a 500% increase. But he said he had watched one of the meetings. They said, well, the appraisal is not going to necessarily mean your taxes go up. So he said he didn't get too worried. But then he received the bill. The payment of about $400 shot up to $950, and then he went into a panic. At that price, he'd have only $40 left every month from Social Security. He's got to get Social Security. That means he's been working to cover food, clothing, utilities, and any other expense that came along. That's why I got out the hospital bed to be here today. That's why I'm here today. And this is what's happening. So then they say, well, Mr. Combs, you need to go on and sell your house because Madisonville is really booming. Sell his house, and then he still can't afford. Because of back taxes and everything, he still can't afford. Why should, I appreciate not losing the stadium, but why he got to lose his house? And so many others like him. Is it more important for him to have the 9 games? Or for him to be able to stay in his house 365 days? This is real stuff. He ain't on the chart. You claim you're going to go bankrupt. You done bankrupt him. He done went bankrupt. Who cares about him going bankrupt? And so then you say, well, the little bit we give don't mean nothing. Well, if it don't mean nothing, let's give it. If it ain't much, let's give it. Next, we always say we want to look at the professionals. Well, these real estate people who pay taxes, and this is what they do. And we now saying we don't care now what they say. We don't care what the Realtor Alliance of Greater Cincinnati are saying. You don't care about what they saying. You're saying you don't care about the Greater Cincinnati Realtors Association. You don't care about what they're saying. You're saying you don't care about the Home Builders Association of Greater Cincinnati. You don't care about what they say. You say you don't care about the Greater Cincinnati Commercial Real Estate Council. You say you don't care about what they say. You don't care about what the Women's Council of Realtors are saying. Don't care nothing about what they say. You don't care about the Real Estate Investor Association. Don't care about what they're saying. So we don't care about what he got to say and people that are like him. We don't care about the people that's in the profession, and they know what the rates are. And they do get passed off to the renters. And then we say we're for affordable housing, but we can't do nothing to help these people stay in the house they already have. I'm not talking about ribbon cuttings. I'm talking about stopping foreclosures. So I truly believe, and I want to say it was not fiscally irresponsible to keep the promise of 30%, because you jumped up and said it wasn't fiscally irresponsible to do an $800+ million plus deal with debt on top of debt on top of debt. You said we got to keep our commitment. Well, why don't we have to keep the commitment to the people? That's where I got a difference. Yes, there's a difference of opinion. I'm not for raising taxes, period. I don't want to put taxes on the back of people. Maybe you don't agree with me. Just come on out and say it. But I'm not fiscally irresponsible. If you're fighting for the Bengals to keep their commitment, I'm fighting for the taxpayers to keep their commitment. If it was irresponsible to give a commitment to the homeowners, then it was an irresponsible commitment to give to the stadiums. And we had a chance to correct it. Denver, these teams, you start looking at these teams, they're not doing deals like that no more. They're putting their own money up. We moved too quick, we moved too fast, we folded too fast, and we left out the taxpayers. Now, you don't have to believe me. I said put it on the ballot and let the taxpayers who paying for it, let them make the decision. But that didn't happen. Business Courier headline, county property tax rebate looks to take a major hit. New Bengal lease factor. That's the real reason you're not getting nothing back. That's the real reason. And I think it was responsible. I wanted to keep the commitment on both ends. And I can't come here and say, oh, as soon as the homeowners come, we start talking, well, you know, the general budget is this and that bull crap. We got all kind of budgets. Hidden budgets. Every time we need to do something, it's like a magic trick. That new movie come. Now you see me, now you don't. We go into a rabbit hat, Mr. Lou. Wait a minute. There's some interest earnings fund, and that's available for Sundance now, and that's available for the soccer. And we didn't get neither one of them, and we voted for it. I don't know where the money at now, because we didn't spend it, but we found it. Then something else. So-and-so needs some more money. I wasn't here. We done found $150,000. It's a miracle. So I'm just saying, we got to have one set of rules. Can't have one set of rules if you just a homeowner in here trying to make it, trying to have your little piece of American dream. You get screwed on. You got to pay extra. We want you to pay extra on your sewer bill. And we'll have a statement for that. Well, there's nothing we can do. We just got to go up. Well, we wasn't going up for all them other years. We just got to go up. Then we come over here. We just ain't going to get nothing back. I mean, it wasn't that much anyway. Let the people say it wasn't that much. Kroger's got a sale now, 10% off and $5 off, and people running through Kroger's now trying to get the $5 off. People need help, man. They need help. And it was interesting that the Business Courier wrote something was interesting. He said, taxpayers, homeowners have been shortchanged regardless of whether you got some Democrats sitting up here or whether you got some Republicans sitting up here. I take offense to that statement. There needs to be, I ran on something different. So I hope when they put it in, they'll say commissioners with an S, but please put me in there as I stood up. I stood up for this older gentleman, 73 years old, I tried to help you not lose your house in Madisonville. I stood up for grandma that was coming up the elevator with me crying because she can't pay it and about to lose everything. I did everything I could, and I'm going to do everything I can to keep standing up. But we can't have two different talking points and talking tracks. When the big issues come with the big boys and the big things, oh, we got one thing, we got to do it, we rolling with it, we can. And then over here, when the people show up, well, you know, we got to think about the budget, we got to be fiscally responsible. I'm saying go in that rabbit hat you've been going in. Now you see me, now you don't. And come out with something, because I know there's something there that can help homeowners. Can you imagine 200,000 homeowners? That's what we're talking about. 200,000? That's a lot of, that's a big group. And I know we want to say, what's the state of this? It's something we can do right now. We can't point to the state and we ain't standing up ourselves. And it's okay to have a difference of opinion. I'm not for putting tax burdens on homeowners. I'm okay to vote by myself if I got to with the homeowners. I'm going to stand up with homeowners. It's okay if you want to vote no to help to cut it down. That's fine. But we're going to disagree. So today, I have a property tax relief motion that I'd like to put in the record. I'm putting it in the record. And there's two things I'm asking for. I'm asking, and I did introduce it. I've been here, this will be my 5th year. I introduced it every year. I got it done twice. I appreciate that. It's not, doesn't make it irresponsible, because we look at it every single year. And I believe that we should have a property tax 30% resolution. Number 2, I'm also for eliminating the proposed real estate transfer increase. And that, to me, is ridiculous. On one side, we hitting you from front and back, ain't we? So I am against that. I have a property tax motion I'm going to put on the record. In addition to that, I also want to note, as we go into the budget for that property tax piece, I'm not for it. I mean, that real estate fee, I'm not for it. I will not support that. And I'm hoping that it is pulled out of the budget. I'm asking that the coalition letter be also entered into the record, official record. So I'll give that to the clerks to have that. And then last, but certainly not least, we do this every year. It's always at the last second. We get one presentation and then the next day we're voting. I am asking, so you don't say, oh, it's just Commissioner Reese, and somebody wrote something, oh, it's 2-1 up there. It's 218,000 votes. And then, of course, they've got hundreds of thousands of votes. What I'm starting today, so we can find out directly from the homeowners, the people that's paying the tax, how do they feel? It's not about what I feel. And so I'm starting a petition today, online petition, that if you're a homeowner, I want to hear from you. Do you want to pay? Do you think you should get 30%? Or are you okay with a single digit? Because it's your money. Do you want a real estate extra fee? Or do you not want it? So we're going to hear now from the people. So we're not in this little room we're in right now. I'm starting a petition drive so we won't have to deal with this. We'll be able to hear Mr. Ludo and others, will be able to hear what did the taxpayers of Hamilton County have to say. So we're putting a motion in. We're asking that we eliminate the real estate fee, and we're launching now, because we got to do this every year, a petition drive for homeowners of Hamilton County. What is it that you want? So that next time when we put a budget together, we can say, this is what the people want. So that's what I have, and I'm hopeful in the budget. I'll be fighting to get that out of the budget, but today is a sad day. As the gentleman said, we're balancing the budget on the backs of the homeowners, and we're blaming them by saying it's fiscally irresponsible to give them a break. And I think that's the wrong message. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to offer a resolution. It's resolution number 25, authorizing a property tax rebate for calendar year 2026.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Reese?
No to 4%.
Thank you. Commissioner, while I disagree with a lot of what you said, I do take exception to the idea that I don't care about public comment. So just for the record, want to say I'm very grateful that you all came in. We disagree on this issue, but thank you for coming in and offering your perspective. Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to item number 5. This is the Public Defender budget presentation. Thank you all for being here. Welcome.
Good morning. Let's get all set up here. Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to present to you today. I'm Angela Chang. I am the director of the Youth Defense Division. If you were hoping to see Sean Vicente, unfortunately, he got stuck on the highway today for his long commute and was not able to be with us, so you only get me today. But also in the room is our Chief Public Defender, Renee Fowler, and our Deputy Defender, Kathy Ancona. I will be seeing you more often next July as the new chief coming in 2026. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for being here.
Great, I'm ready for slides. All right, and so I want to start off by the words from Gideon versus Wainwright, fundamental and essential. I think that really encapsulates the public defender's budget request. We so appreciate that the commission has been so supportive of making the promise of Gideon real. And over the years, of course, due to advances in social science, forensic science, and technology. What it looks like to have effective counsel has certainly evolved, and I'm proud to say that our office has evolved with it. I think that we provide some of the finest service to people who are involved in the criminal legal system and the juvenile legal system across the country. So just a brief overview of the points I'm going to touch on. I believe that our budget request supports all of the Commission's priorities, and it also supports the Public Defender Commission priorities for our office. So the big points are that strong public defense actually improves public safety, that our quality recruitment practices ensure that we are offering the best service to the community and are contributing to the workforce in the community. And lastly, as we see, much of the public dialogue around the need for increased law enforcement and surveillance technology, our budget request reflects the need to also sufficiently resource public defenders in order to meet that challenge and need and all the evolving technology that we have to understand and ensure that the government is not overstepping and violating constitutional rights. So you'll note there's artwork throughout the presentation, and that is beautiful artwork that was commissioned by the art teacher at the youth center and done by the young people themselves, so I hope you'll enjoy that with us. So in terms of improving public safety, access to services require, and all the wonderful services that you have been supporting, does require support to navigate them. And one of the things that we are very good at and we find is critical is that we have a holistic defense model that improves public safety by connecting our clients to those community supports, because there are so many wonderful organizations out there, but finding the right match for the client and their individual needs does take some time and effort. And specialized knowledge. So just a few stories of our successes in the past couple years through our holistic defense model. So first story is Robbie. So 11-year-old Robbie was able to resolve some years-old cases, just missing court and things like that, where our office had not represented him. But over some time, our defense team worked with him. During that time, they connected him with education representation to secure special education services, which he did not have before, and assisted with bus passes, transportation to court, and repaired his tumultuous relationship with his mother, and ultimately supported the family in a variety of ways. And at the end of the conclusion of his cases, he said, "Thanks for everything, like for real. I think it's really cool that y'all care about this stuff." And his mother said that she didn't realize that the public defender's office could even help people out with the things that we help them with, and she's been telling people that we're important. Similarly, the story about 15-year-old Sky, we've changed names obviously for their privacy. She was charged with a very serious felony charge at the age of 15. When we met her, she had severe anxiety that prevented her from even getting into the school building. And through our holistic defense team, we connected her with a psychologist who was able to work with her through a lot of her mental health issues and trauma. She got a great resolution in her case that kept her in the community. And she was able to go to high school, attend high school, and graduate, and she's going to be starting college in January. And her mother sent a thank you to us and just said that they really wouldn't be there without the help of our team. So those are just some of the stories in youth specific, but we have similar stories in adult court due to our holistic defense team helping people early on in their cases when they're in a time of crisis, navigate the system and find support so they don't have to come back to court, so they can stay in the community. They can keep their jobs, support their families, and all at a significant cost savings, of course, by avoiding incarceration dollars. And I know that some of the commissioners have been to see our Fresh Start Clinic. We have provided, since 2014, we've applied for 50,000 plus applications for sealing and expungement. So we've helped a lot of members, about 900 folks a year we are able to support through our staff to get their records cleared so they can avoid the barriers that they encounter to successful life in the community. We also participate in a lot of community education and engagement. You can see especially our mitigation specialist, Stephanie Singler, at the almost every 513 relief bus stop. We attend one-stop resource fairs, school resource events, and that's just to name a few. A lot of our attorneys are sought after to speak in the community to schools and law school classes and other members of the other groups in the community to educate them about their rights. We also focus a lot on partnerships, and so this is just a non-exhaustive list of a lot of the partnerships that we have engaged with over the years and continue to ensure that we are best utilizing the resources that the community has to offer to serve our clients. And just want to highlight a few, we have a indigent defense clinic that we've run for many years now through the College of Law, bringing in law students who are also interested in pursuing public defense. And with the Children's Law Center, we just concluded a grant that allowed them to provide direct, as part of our legal defense team, education and civil legal services to young people and their families who needed them. So in terms of who our attorneys are and why we have asked for additional positions, and we do ask for full funding of our budget request, is because we have been so successful at recruiting top talent. And I just want to profile a few of our wonderful attorneys. So first is Jamila Batchelor. She's in our hiring class of 2022. She actually came to us as a 2-time Emmy Award-winning journalist. And she shares that she came to the office after switching careers, after nearly a decade as a journalist. She really wanted to pursue her passion for social justice, and she found that our office was the best way to do that, and she is very excited to be part of an office that's actively changing the narrative of public defense. Catherine Poppy, in our hiring class of 2023, she came to our office because of how focused we are on achieving justice for our clients and being a voice for those who are marginalized and underrepresented. And she just, the way that we're engaged with the community made her want to stay in this, and she came to us from Georgetown University. Anisha Rakra, also in the hiring class of 2022, is one of our criminal defense clinic graduates, but she actually came to us from New York after being a social worker for many years, and she chose our office because she knew she would receive some of the best training she could find in the country as a young attorney. And our emphasis on holistic defense is a big piece of the attraction to young lawyers that are graduating. And so our staff, as I said before, we educate and engage with the community. You'll see us presenting at conferences at the state and national level. We are recognized as leaders both locally and nationally. This is just an example of one of our investigators who was honored this year by the Job and Family Services. Can't remember the name right now, but as a esteemed 7, I believe. And then we also are providing legal expertise to the media to make sure that the coverage is balanced and that the public is informed. And you can see Sean there talking about the charging for body-worn camera video. A key reason for our need to have the full budget request is to make sure that we continue to prevent unjust arrests and convictions. Well-resourced public defenders, we're critical to provide a check against law enforcement, and there's so much new technology. I know that the sheriff just talked recently about the additional investment into Axon and Fusus. These are all AI-powered technologies that, the defense attorney, the defense bar has yet to fully grapple with. And we have to be sure that we're on par by training and otherwise, and resource-wise, to make sure that none of these technologies are used in a way that overstep the government's bounds on our privacy and our constitutional rights. And so it's very important that we get the full funding. And it's just been up in the news. There is a lot more investment into law enforcement presence, and what that means to the public defender's office is that there's going to be more contacts with law enforcement, with the sheriff's collaboration with OSP in the downtown area. In just 30 days, they had 800 some contacts, and several hundred of those were not
did not result in arrests or crimes. But what we know is the more increase you have of contacts with law enforcement, and especially people of color, is that there's going to be just law enforcement generated charges. And so we need to make sure that we are able to keep up with that flow. And to be effective, beyond just the trial skills, which I would argue that most of our attorneys have some of the best trial skills in the area, if not the country, we also need to stay abreast of the best training options that are out there on holistic defense, forensic science and law enforcement technology, and developments in the law. Just by way of example, Sarah Nelson is one of our appellate attorneys, and she is going to be arguing and partnering with the Skadden Arps law firm to talk about Fourth Amendment issues before the Ohio Supreme Court. And this is in direct response to law that is happening around our privacy rights at the United States level, and it could be headed to the Supreme Court of the United States. So in terms of our impact, you'll see this is just an example. We have our 2024 youth defense case outcomes and municipal case defense case outcomes. And just to highlight, especially we at a much higher rate than panel attorneys are getting acquittals. We are getting motions to mitigate granted in municipal court. And I highlight that to show how many more per year that we are winning. These are just the ones that we win, not all the ones that we file. But that means that we are making sure judges know that a person has a plan and is safe to return to the community, so we don't have to spend the dollars on incarcerating them. And so we also come at a cost savings. So for each of our trial divisions in municipal, youth defense, and felony, we provide a significant savings per case per each of our attorneys. These are our 2024 numbers. So the 3 attorneys that we've asked for would increase our felony division, which is the only division in the office that doesn't take the majority of the cases because of the slowly increasing size. And we are so thankful to the commission for helping us grow that division. Every year that we add attorneys to the felony division means that we are reducing the budget from the assigned counsel costs and providing this great level of service. And so our estimated savings for the 3 attorney positions to the county are $152,860 a year. And just by way of showing the additional cost savings you'll get through the public defender's office. So I just estimated, and a lot of times the motions to mitigate are more than 30 days, but at the ODRC estimated cost of jail as $109 roughly per person in jail. The 108 motions at 30 days is a $355,000 savings annually. And that's probably lowballing the impact we have to the county there. So in terms of our budget request, we do believe this is investing in public safety. It certainly ensures the proper operation of the judicial system. And with the public defender reimbursement, this is a $2.23 million increase in revenue. And just to break down our budget request, again, it is the 3 full-time felony attorneys, office space because we have outgrown our space. Recognizing the current budget climate, we did not request the joining of our 2 buildings, but we do need additional office space, and so that is the $60,000 that we're asking for there. And then consistent with, I think, the commission's goals of making sure that staff are getting the appropriate salary adjustment, that accounts for the majority of our 2026 request. With the state public defender reimbursement predicted to be at 84%, the net general fund cost to the county is $145,000, $912. And just to break it down with the cost to the county for these 3 items, our request to add those 3 full-time attorneys, cost to the county with the reimbursement is only $46,081. And so, and that is not even including the cost savings that we will bring to the county by moving more cases to our in-house staff versus assigning them to counsel outside of our office. And I won't reiterate the points that I've already made, so I'll move on. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. I've got a couple of questions related to the last part of the presentation when you got to the cost.
Yes.
So the all staff salary adjustments, so we have done the 3% increase by way of the entire county workforce. Is that factored in here, or how does it factor into this?
So our request was at a 3.5% cost of living adjustment for all of the staff. So I think it is similar or approximate to that. But that was not, when we made the request, that was not factored in, if that makes sense.
So is the 563 for the salary adjustment, is some of that incorporated? And maybe Jeff, this is a question for you, or Ray, I don't know. But is that an outstanding request from you, or has that been covered through what the administrator recommended by way of the 3% increase?
So with the target budget, I think that our items generally were just overall approved, but we would be at a deficit with the target budget currently. We would not be able to add attorneys. I'm not sure. We'd have to probably take out of our training budget. The only pieces on our budget that are a little more flexible but would come at great cost to us would be taking money from our training budget, from our IT budget, and then we can look at whatever cost savings we have through court appointment costs that we can offset, but that's obviously not, that's very variable and unpredictable. And so at the current target budget, I'm not sure where they'll play out. We certainly cannot add full-time attorneys.
No, understood. I was just worrying or asking about the adjustment, the salary adjustment. And with recognition that your staff are the reason you do so well. I mean, obviously, you're doing great work. Yeah. I did visit the expungement clinic. It's really impressive in really helping people get back on their feet and advance. Obviously, you're doing that with both adults and children, and it must be very gratifying.
It really is.
It's
kind of one of my favorite times is when I get to talk to folks.
I love it. I love it. And it's gratifying to be a part of it, right? Yes. So I'm very grateful for the work that you and the team does over at the PD's office. Just trying to understand the numbers a little bit better. Yes. So as we think about then the 3 attorneys, and I will continue to advocate, by the way, as a county commissioner for the full reimbursement from the state. We just heard earlier about the state simply not holding up their end of the bargain, and this is another example of that. We are doing a service for the state. They are mandated to do it. We do it for them, and they don't pay us for it. So it's like, well, all right. They give us something, but not all of it. So I will continue to advocate for that. Just put that in the back of your mind. I don't know how successful we'll be, but we'll continue to lead the charge. But as you think about that then, with the additional attorneys, can you help me better understand? I remember coming over and visiting the office. I don't know how long ago, it's been a couple years ago probably, and you were trying to staff up then. So can you help me understand what the trajectory has been, say, over the last 5 years by way of hiring? Are you on the increase by way of hiring, or is it flattened, or help me understand that?
Over the last couple years, it's been flattening, but it kind of goes with attrition too. In terms of increase of positions, gosh, Ray, you may be able to answer this better, but yes.
No worries. Okay, yeah, just trying to get an understanding of what it means to have 3 additional, if you're have been unable to have that increase in recent years, or if it's flat, or if you actually have been able to gradually build, and that's kind of what I'm asking.
And I do actually have our administrator is on medical leave, but he indicated that in the 5 years we've added 17 positions, but the last few we've had 0. So.
Okay. That's very helpful. All right, very good. Thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the work. Please bring back to the team that we are grateful for all that you do.
Thank you for your support.
Summer Dumas.
Thank you for your presentation. Jeff, I really wanted to ask the same question that Madam President asked as it relates to salary adjustment. Is that 3% that we were proposing, is that included in their budget or not? Are they paying that themselves?
Yeah, so typically what, and Rob may be able to speak to this in more detail, but typically what we would do is we would pull, when we go through the budget process, we would pull out a departmental's individual requests, like if someone was requesting 5% for a salary adjustment, we'd pull that out, and then we would reinsert the board's 3%. If we came up with a 3% number, that's what we would insert. So to the degree that they have a target budget that's less than what they requested, that would be part of the reason, is that the amount that we were accommodating for a salary adjustment would be below the cost of living that they had assumed in their initial submittal.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make well, first of all, you guys do great work. I already know that. And so just continue on that road, and I'm sure you will. And congratulations to you and your promotion. But I was looking at the partnerships that you have in here, and we all know that you can't do it without partnerships. So to see the diversity of partnerships was also good to see. And then I looked at the data as it relates to the impact, and that it was just really impressive when I looked at the motions to mitigate and also acquittal by judges. It's really something to be proud of. So I wanted to thank you for that. Now, the office space, I was just going to bring up to Jeff. Were you able to hear me while I was talking or not? No, yeah, okay. But anyway, Jeff, as we look at office space, we moved to Bond Hill, and I was thinking about the mobility of staff and staff moving out of buildings. Maybe the possibility, and that would be up to the department, of course, of maybe 3 attorneys being in Bond Hill. If we have any space. I know we're looking at leasing some space there, but probably most of them want to be with their group where they are. But I'm just saying the 60,000 they were saying for office space. You know, I'm really trying, and the board is really trying to get as many services out there that we can in that Bond Hill area. We can't get everybody out there, but it may be a place if they were willing for 3 of the attorneys to be out in the Bond Hill area. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's all I had, so.
Okay, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, our next presentation is JFS. Welcome back, Michael.
Welcome back. This should be a little less emotional.
I don't know, you're doing some complicated work as well.
Oh, I see. Got it. Thank you, commissioners, for having me this afternoon to go over our 2026 budget. I'll start off by saying, which I do every year, that for those of you who are watching, Job and Family Services funded primarily federally and state funded, although we do have a Children's Services levy that supports a lot of the work that we do in Children's Services, not only for our children that we have in custody and in care, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but also with other community partners, networks that support the work of keeping children safe in Hamilton County. So I just want to say that up front so everybody's clear. We're not making a specific request, but what happens at JFS from a fiscal perspective can impact the general fund. It hasn't up until this point in a lot of significant ways, but I'll talk a little bit about what's happening, what headwinds we see coming down from the federal and state perspectives that might have an impact going forward. This slide really just kind of talks about and demonstrates what we do, who we serve, and the reach that we have in Hamilton County for all of the divisions that are under the Job and Family Services umbrella. As you can see there, child support, about 174,000 residents served in Hamilton County. That's 1 in 5. That is actually a low estimate because we don't know the number of children each one of these cases involved, but that is at least 2 parents and a child. 175,000 folks are involved in our work at JFS, where we enforce the order of the courts to pay, support, establish paternity, locate parents, et cetera, from our child support division. Our Children's Services division supports 1 in 13 children in the county, about 14,106 Children's Services residents served in that capacity over the course of 2024. That includes not only children, but families that are connected to those children and services that we provide and supply to those families as well. The biggest chunk you will see is Medicaid, 230,000 Medicaid cases. I'll talk a little bit about that when we go into impacts. I won't talk too long about it, but there will be potential impacts with the One Big Beautiful Bill as it relates to Medicaid here locally that we need to be aware of. Food assistance, we just talked about that with SNAP freezing. Almost 97,000 recipients of SNAP, 1 in 9 in Hamilton County are touched by our SNAP benefit program. We also administer child care vouchers, eligibility for families who are interested in getting financial support that meet the income requirements. We also provide vouchers to help offset the cost of child care in Hamilton County. That's 1 in 14 children also come through GFS for that service. In addition to licensing some of the local, not licensing, but confirming and auditing licensings that we have for family providers in Hamilton County, individual family providers. The centers are licensed and audited by the state of Ohio, child care centers. Workforce development, 22,000, 1 in 36, and then cash assistance. These are direct cash payments through TANF for folks that are typically unemployed. They're involved in some work activity, but 1 in 143 are touched by the system. So share that graph just to share with the board and the public at large in terms of the scope of the folks that we serve in the county. We're the largest county under the Board of County Commissioners, like I mentioned before. Major work streams include children's services, child support, workforce development, adult protective services, and client services, which encompass food, cash assistance, Medicaid, child care assistance as well. We also partner with public and private agencies, and also we have a connection with the Job and Family Services Planning Commission, which is a commission that I meet with usually every other month to talk about the status of what's happening with JFSBC and those providers that include Beach Acres and Talbot House and the couple of other nonprofit organizations really talk and we talk about how they can help in the work that we do. So we keep them up to date and informed on the work that we do at JFS, and they provide support in that manner. We're also accredited by the Council on Accreditation for Children and Families. This is just a breakdown of our divisions. I won't go into all of the detail in terms of what they do. I think I've just covered that pretty clearly. But this is a breakdown of the divisions on our table of organization and the positions budgeted in each one of those divisions. Children's Services, we have 381 positions budgeted. I'll talk a little bit about vacancies there too. We're doing really well with reducing vacancies in Children's Services, which is a good indicator. We have 142 positions budgeted in child support. Our Economic Sustainability Division is at 381. Just noticed that was the same number as Children's Services. So you can see the size of these and the scale of these departments and the number of people that we employ in Hamilton County that do the work of the citizens of Hamilton County. Finance and operational support, 97 positions budgeted. Before I go any further, I do have John and Jen from our fiscal department who will answer any detailed questions that might come up related to the budget as we get into that aspect of the presentation. And then the executive administration, which is my department, under the director, 58 budgeted positions, which includes my office, executive assistant, office of system partnerships and community solutions, and also our strategic initiatives unit. So here's the current challenges that we currently face for this budget period and also likely in 2027. The uncertainty of the impacts of the One Big Beautiful Bill. I've broken these down in 3 areas, which is really community impact, which is how will these changes impact the people we serve in the programs that we administer in Hamilton County? What does that look like from a consumer's or recipient standpoint? What the fiscal impacts will be, which could be significant as well, and also what the operational impact is going to be. What does that mean for the work that we have to do in order to adjust to these changes that are coming up? So I'll just talk a little bit about the uncertainty of OBB. I don't have a specific slide for it, but I'll talk about what many of you may have heard about related to the SNAP benefits. The first big change with the SNAP benefits is that there has been a change at the federal level of reimbursement. So the federal, for administrative costs for SNAP benefits, the federal government used to cover 50% of the cost of administration. and the state will cover the other 50% of costs for the administration of the SNAP benefit program. One Big Beautiful Bill changed that to 75-25 split, which means that the state has to cover 75% of the administrative costs, and the federal government will cover 25%. We've crunched some numbers here locally to try to get at what the financial impact of that is going to be locally, and we see that right now being anywhere from a $3 to $5 million impact on our current JFS budget. Not the general fund, but to our internal job and family services budget. The other big piece related to uncertainty around the One Big Beautiful Bill has to do with SNAP, the second part of the SNAP change, which is the benefit cost sharing aspect of that. The federal law now is going to require states to share in the cost of the benefits that are issued in that state. And that cost sharing model will be based on the error rate of the state. Right now, the law reads that any state that has above a 6% error rate will have to contribute a portion, a 5% of their overall, with the 6%, over 6%, 5% of the overall cost share for the amount of SNAP that is distributed in that state. And that percentage goes up incrementally the higher the error rate goes. And so right now, the state's focus and ODGF's focus is to keep the state at 6% or below before these take effect, which will be, they will start to count next year. There's some flexibility. The states can choose to decide which fiscal years they want to use before it goes into effect in 2027. But we need to be below 6% as a state when it starts counting in July of 2026. And ODGFS has done a really good job at working with the counties to get us to that point. The error rate is not statistically valid at the county level. They pull a sample. It's not necessarily tied to the number of cases we have. So the state is now been asked by the legislature at the state to figure out a way to look at how we can put in resources to review cases so that they can determine what a statistically valid error rate is at the county level. We don't know how that will look right now. That is currently in planning. That is a big deal. And if we don't get to 6%, the implications could be extremely significant in terms of cost to the local JFS, depending on what happens. And then the second part.
Where are we now?
Yes.
Where are we now with our error rate?
I think the last error rate for Hamilton, I want to say, was around 12%, but again, not statistically valid in terms of how that would be calculated for a penalty. That is what we've been discussing as an association of directors as well. And then the other big part about OBB is the Medicaid recertifications are going to go from annually to every 6 months. That essentially doubles the casework for all of our caseworkers. So that is a significant impact on us operationally. It's going to expand work requirements for able-bodied adults without dependents from 54 to 64. So there's a whole population of folks. I think there are about 280 or 300 folks that we've been able to identify that would now have to meet these new work requirements, and we would have to obviously monitor those work requirements, ensure that they were in appropriate placements, ensure that they were attending, et cetera. So that is additional work that is unfunded as well. And then recently there was a change to the immigrant status of some populations on the SNAP benefits. That went into effect November 1st. There was some changes to our system that incorrectly eliminated folks based on their immigrant status that were eligible. We had to go back in and fix that. We've been told by the state that any of the changes that should be permanent as it relates to OBB will be in effect early in 2027. So the programming for some of these, even in our systems, is still happening. And so we're waiting to kind of see what the implications of that will be. And then the second challenge, which I think is equally concerning as well, is what we've been talking about pretty much all year, which is the drastic increase in the cost of care. We've seen an increase in the number of children that come into our system that we're mandated to keep safe from abuse and neglect with high needs, and the cost associated with those children are skyrocketing. That is not a local issue. That is not a state issue. That is a national issue. We have a lack of available and appropriate placement options. Commissioners, you see every week our JFS agenda items We are constantly reviewing and entering into contracts to make sure we have places for children to go, to continue to be safe and to be treated if necessary, and to be connected with foster parents or forever families. You see the amount that we spend weekly on the work on these kinds of contracts. We continue to do that. The rates are increasing as well. And just overall provider rates have increased and continue to increase significantly. So for our total budget for 2026 is $325 million. That's operation and staff costs, et cetera. This does not build in what we issue out in benefits. If you count what we issue out in benefits, it's somewhere near $3 billion. Revenue generally built on historical data. All revenue allocations are budgeted near the same for 2025. Again, these are the federal and state revenues that we expect to get in 2026 have remained relatively flat, although what I talked about earlier in terms of the OBB uncertainty will impact this. Overall budget increased slightly by less than 2% for 2026. Current vacant positions, 60 in children's services, 36 in economic sustainability, 22 in child support, 3 in office of systems, 7 in strategic initiatives, and 8 in finance and operations. We recognize the pause that Administrator Ludo put out. We are still filling right now frontline, forward-facing caseload-serving positions. Those are basic service positions that we continue to fund and hire for, but all other positions have been frozen. These next few slides talk about what we're budgeted for 2025, what we are projecting for 2026. Public assistance budget goes from $119 to $130 million. Child support is relatively flat. 2025 budget was $16,435,000. 2026 budget is $18,854,000. Workforce Investment Act reduced just a little bit from 2025 to 2026. Children's Services is what we'll get into here just shortly. I have one more slide on this, but our total budget for 2025 was $175,886,000. We are projecting 2026 at 169 because we are anticipating some cost-saving implementations that we need to do internally and also elsewhere in order to make sure we stay within budget for 2026. So that reduction that you see there reflects some tightening that we have to have in order to make sure the budget is going to be balanced in 2026. And so budget considerations, the levy expenditures are increasing drastically, primarily due to the cost of care. Ongoing discussions and action will be necessary to ensure expenditures remain within the approved budget for 2026. Budget requests in other JFS divisions remain relatively flat. One Big Beautiful Bill impacts will be monitored closely in JFS to ensure delivery of mandated services in 2026. And I can take questions, obviously, but what I'd like to do also is just let the board know that we put together a memo that we'll send to Jeff, copy of the board, on some things that we think would be impacted by what we're seeing as it relates to the cost of care for the Children's Services Levy, for your consideration, for your review, that kind of breaks things down in a way that I think helps all of us understand what the expenditures are going to look like for 2026, what our projections are, what our mandated and non-mandated services look like for next year, because there will, in order for us to maintain that balance, we're going to have conversations in that area. So we have, before the end of the day, we'll send out something to you all that will outline what those things look like, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, and thanks for the team for being here. That was going to be my question. What would be your recommendations moving forward, given all of what you just told us? It's all challenging news, right? By way of the cost of care going up, the number of kids going up, and the impact of what the federal government is doing, putting an additional strain on the resources. That's a real challenge because we're talking about kids and the safety of kids in this community. And So I will be interested to see what you have to say related to that. We've got limited resources by way of the levy.
Yes.
And so that's something that we need to think through.
Agreed. And I think the starting point is what's mandated and what's not at this point. And given the cost of care and what we've seen in terms of the cost increases and the percentage of increases, I was here earlier this year where we described the increases in residential treatment care, costs going up over 100%, other costs associated with care, other categories of cost going up over 100% since 2016, 2017. So these costs are continuing to increase. Some of it has to do with just availability and supply-demand challenges. A lot of it has to do with healthcare costs. A lot of it has to do with those organizations also wanting to make sure that they staff the best and they pay the best and they have people that are in place that can provide the services that these children need so desperately. And so there are a lot of factors that contribute to what we've seen as it relates to the cost of care. But I think the starting point will certainly be for us to look at what the levy is funding that is not mandated at this point, and also what the implication would be if there were reduced levy funds on the general fund going forward with OBB in the background. Because if the SNAP benefit error rate is problematic, the implications there, even at a 6% or over 6% for cost sharing, I think the last number I looked at was like in the neighborhood of $16-17 million that we would have to absorb as a county just to pay for the SNAP benefits that we issue. If the error rate is higher, it goes higher than that. So there are a lot of factors that we need to pay attention to and make decisions on.
All right. So I have looked at a document that you provided. I don't remember how long ago. It's been a few months about mandated versus non-mandated services. And I don't remember if you did this evaluation of if we were to reduce or eliminate not mandated services that are being paid for through the levy, what would that mean to the overall budget? And I guess the question is, how much time would it buy us if we were to do something like that? Because it's hard to understand that, we've got this, and Women Helping Women is one of them.
Yeah,
We just
they are
heard from
correct.
one of them about the Divert program, which all of us feel is critically important to keeping families safe in this community, and yet that is what is defined as a non-mandated service. And so, and we've got others that are really important. However, they're not mandated. So if you could do that evaluation for us, if you haven't already. So the question is, if you were to reduce or eliminate those services, what would that mean by way of the impact to the mandated services, all with an eye towards not having the general fund responsible for some of these services? Because then once again, here we are, right? That once again, then there's this domino effect where all the other, especially preventive services, we just heard the PD talk about it.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff. How are we going to fund that if we've now got a drain, an additional drain, I should say, on the general fund related to what JFS is providing through the levy? So you understand what I'm asking you for. So yeah, I'll be interested to see that, because we've got some difficult decisions to make.
Yes.
Related to all of the above and what it might mean to the levy itself and the timing and all of what this community would or would not support. So.
No, we can do that. I think we've done some of that preliminary work now, but I think for us to get precise for you all, we can give you a general estimate of exactly how much time that buys us.
Yeah,
because the levy goes on next year, so we need to know.
Right, that's exactly right.
How many months we get.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a few more questions as it relates to, I looked at your first sheet, who we serve. I just had a question on workforce development. Is that adults and children? Or
Yes.
That's adults and children.
That includes adults and children.
Okay, and I noticed adult protective service was not listed as a program on here. Is there?
We capture that under children's services. It's sort of a inclusive, so it's under that division. So it's not reflected in the presentation. I think we mentioned it under Children's Services on a later slide, but we captured that under the Children's Services Division.
Okay, very good. The accreditation that you have, or we have, how long is the accreditation for?
We are up for re-accreditation now, so we're going through that process now, and our goal is to try to make sure we finalize that in 2026. So we're in the process of going through accreditation at this point.
So you're going to wait until we finish accreditation?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. Let's see. I'll save that for last. Public assistance, you indicated, would go up. Do you think it's because it's more people, or that the amount that the people, that the recipients get?
I'm going to ask John on that particular question in terms of the increase in public assistance.
Yeah.
So, Commissioner, there's a number of contracts that are actually impacting that. A lot have to do with net transportation related contracts and such. Then, of course, also that fund, the Public Assistance Fund, operates as our operating fund for payroll. So all of our payroll really comes out of that account. So any kind of wage adjustments would all be in there, both the ones that are tied to the union contract, as well as the administrator's recommended one as well. So,
okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. I was just going to touch on the lack of available placements. As you said, we've talked about it many times, and it just kind of draws me back to the idea of Hillcrest, that we were saying we can't afford to have people out there for treatment. We are trying to renovate it and all of that. And but I'm just wondering, I had mentioned to Jeff about having agencies maybe. I don't know how many sites are out there, like 6 different buildings or
cottages, I think so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that maybe have Talbot House, because I had heard that Talbot House would be doing something out there. Man, I just heard it, but
we did apply. I supported Talbot House in applying for a state grant that DCY provided to local JFS, well, not local JFSs, but local organizations throughout the state of Ohio. So we supported them in that application. They divided a portion of that $10 million funding to metros as a separate category, and the rest of the state was able to apply separate from that. So we applied with Talbot House for funding there as well to help jumpstart work at Hillcrest.
Okay, very good. So I'm thinking, because of the providers, 100% more for what they're providing, if we could, and we're looking at the money that it takes to have programming in there, maybe we need to look at, we don't have a lot of money now, but looking at the possibility of trying to do whatever we can do through grants or whatever to get Hillcrest up and going, even though I know there are some children that need, well, they could independent living, but Hillcrest was considered to be a moderate, what is the restriction on Hillcrest? A certain level?
They had I think they had different cottages for different levels of care at some point, but they also had the school there, so the kids were able to go to school all in one place. This particular application we made was for respite care, so kids that needed to go temporarily 30 to 45 days to get respite care in a space that allowed them to stay local, and also increase the likelihood that they could stay with family locally. It's kind of what Toward is looking for, what we're looking for, and what we applied for the funding from the state. Again, $10 million over 2 years, so $20 million, we would get a portion of that. So, I mean, I think our high estimate is something like maybe $2.5 million if we are awarded that for Hillcrest, and that's sort of startup costs. But the idea would we would get it and then use that funding to get things up and running there.
Very good. And I know the higher level child may still have to go out of state or whatever, but whenever things work out and level out, we look at trying to move a little faster, and we've been stopping on purpose, but to move a little faster to get maybe our children in there instead of sending them somewhere else. There's one other thing I wanted to say. I think that might be it. Let me think of something else to keep you up there, though. But no. So I'm thinking about though. I don't know what we're gonna do. I've been not getting a lot of sleep thinking about these providers, and I understand increasing their rates. And what do we do to continue to serve our young people? And I think we just have to get our own. Oh, I was going to say about the people out in that area in the neighborhood. We met with them a few times about what our goal was as far as Hillcrest, and I don't want to change it where we have a higher level child there, but I think we need to. That might be an out for us whenever we. Oh, and I wanted to talk to Madam President about you have a relationship with the governor, and he had a grant that people could put in, and my understanding, we did not get the grant for Hillcrest, but maybe if he knows, and maybe you've already talked to him about it, I know you were up there about taxes, but how the providers have just increased their amount that they're charging, and what that means is we have to send our kids farther away, and that he may consider, because he is going to have another grant come up, the urgency of having us get one of those grants. Because we have the facilities. So I wanted to ask you about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Yep.
Thing to tag on to Michael's comments, because I just want to, and I've previewed the draft memo that they have that they'll release later today, which they did a really good job in identifying potential reduction sources. The thing I just want to prepare everyone for is that I'll just use the word insidious nature of the financial predicament that we face here is it's not even as simple as they're being mandated and non-mandated, and let's just reduce non-mandated and move on. Many of those non-mandated functions, I think when I was talking to John, he said it best. He's unfortunately a lot of the non-mandated start with the word Hamilton County. So a lot of the things that JFS would see as non-mandated are things that we fund through the Children's Services Levy to take pressure off of the general fund, not specifically for that. It helps and benefits children under the definition of the levy, but at the same time, it is not mandated by the Ohio Revised Code. So some of the things that JFS is potentially looking to reduce the strain on the levy could potentially have a relatively significant general fund impact as well. So this is going to be a tough navigation over the next couple of weeks to figure out how to balance this as we move into 2026. So,
well, and one might argue that some of the services that we do that are non-mandated prevent kids and adults from going into the system in the first place. I mean, that's the whole reason we do them. And so if we were to, and I know you can't calculate that, like if we got rid of the divert program, what does that mean? I mean, do we have kids and adults going into the system because we've eliminated this emergency response program? I mean, it's hard to calculate.
It's hard to calculate it.
Yeah.
We know it's good work, and we know it matters, and we know it potentially does prevent families from ending up in a situation where they're abusing their child, and then we get called, and it becomes a case.
Absolutely.
And so those are difficult to measure, but it does have an impact.
Yeah, and which is, again, the whole reason we have them to begin with is to try to keep individuals out of the system. And so there would be a negative impact for reducing some of that funding and getting rid of some of those programs. So I recognize that it's not an easy equation. I think what you're providing for us is a simple math equation about the dollars and cents, but it will not be able to measure the impact to this community. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. We have one more item. We have a budget hearing on the MSD budget for 2026. So I want to open this hearing. We have had this presentation, and it was fairly extensive. Last time Diana Christie was here. Thank you for being here again. So we did hear some public comment related to the budget for MSD. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to make whatever level of presentation you deem appropriate, because we've already had the public comment related to this item.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. And good afternoon. I was going to suggest that as well.
We do have the same presentation, but just given the interest of time and that you've all already heard it, and we'll be here next week, if you'd like, I can just hit the highlights of the actual numbers, the operating budget numbers, capital, and the rates, if that works.
Yeah, let's do that. And also, as we've walked through the timing of the general fund budget, walk us through the timing here of this budget as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And yes, of course, if you want me to dig in on any of the details, I'd be happy to. But I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in. Again, we are here presenting MSD's proposed 2026 operating and capital budgets. These are the funds that allow us to carry out the core mission of collecting and treating wastewater and protecting public health and the environment. I think I can skip through the background, but I'm just reminder of our operations and the areas that we operate our treatment plants. Get right to the core of our operating budget request. So this will be for 2026. Our operating budget includes personnel costs for each division, non-personnel costs for each division. We have a category of other non-personnel, and then our sewer backup program and our debt payment. You can see that the total operating budget request is about $255.9 million. This does represent an increase over 2025. It's about a 6.3% increase. And as you can see, though, our increase from last year was unusually low, especially given the inflationary increases we've been seeing in our in our operations and maintenance of the system. To keep it low last year, really we are reflecting some of those increased costs that we talked about last week, but they really are primarily things that are out of our control. So we have rising labor costs, material and energy costs, and many of these are just driven by the same conditions that are driving market increases that we're all experiencing in our lives. So again, I was going to just kind of skip through these slides, but certainly there's more information in our budget book and in this presentation for anyone who hasn't had a chance to look at it. In particular, we talked quite a bit about our power costs. MSD is a large user of power, and we've experienced a lot of increases on both the capacity and generation due to market conditions that directly impact our operating budget. Tariffs, we've talked a lot about this as well, and the increases in tariffs really are very unpredictable and uncertain, and that in and of itself has driven increases in our operating budget. Another key area is just the costs of maintenance of our facilities. We have a very robust capital program that we're going to talk about, but the infrastructure that we have is aging. We have treatment plants that the equipment in those, they're reaching the end of useful life. They have to be maintained until we can get a capital improvement. So overall, just costs of maintaining the systems that we have, treatment plants and sewers that are aging is continuing to rise. The sewer backup program, this here is a snapshot on your right of the current expenditures and program stats for 2025. We are keeping the budget the same for 2026. The proposed program budget is $8.8 million. I did share some information, did not update the slides, but do want to remind everyone that we have this same report for all the way back to the beginning of the program on our website, and we update it monthly. And so if you go to the msdgc.org website and the sewer backup program, it's /SBU, you can find a lot of information and see how much we've been spending each year. All that is on there. But what we're showing here is that the request will remain the same. And as you can see, generally speaking, the program is broken down into 3 categories. So we have our response and cleaning costs, and then we have claims if a property was damaged from a sewer backup. And then properties that are eligible, which is when they've experienced 2 or more capacity-related sewer backups. We have a sewer backup prevention program, and we are designing and installing solutions for private property owners to protect them from future sewer backups. So we spend the majority of the program money on the sewer backup prevention program because those are construction costs on properties. In 2025 to date, we've installed or protected 35 properties, and we've got a lot of those currently underway. I also just wanted to point out, it's not on the slide, so for 2024, we spent 7.3 million of the 8.8 million of that budget. So we're a little under, but we still think it's an adequate budget to carry over for next year. The capital program, I just really quickly wanted to mention, and we can do a deeper dive on this perhaps after the budget season, but when we talk about our capital program, we're talking about the work that we're doing to invest in our system, to upgrade the aging infrastructure, to upgrade our assets, sewers that are 100 and 200 years old in some place. But we're also talking about the balance that we have to have between that asset management work and the wet weather improvement program. That is the work we're doing pursuant to our consent decree. Again, our consent decree is a federally mandated program to bring our system that was built long before we had a Clean Water Act, to bring that system up into compliance with the Clean Water Act. And it's been taking place over decades, and it is very costly, and it requires us to very carefully evaluate how much we can afford and how much the community can afford to spend, because there is no other funding available for this program. So we have achieved a lot. We've done a lot of work. So here's just a quick snapshot. We're talking about combined sewer overflows and sanitary sewer overflows there, how much we've achieved. And again, happy to come to a deeper dive and talk about where we're going with our phase 2B. Which is the next phase of consent decree work that we have started and will be taking place over the next 10 years. But for now, just kind of, again, focusing on the highlights, the 2026 capital budget request. We are requesting $153 million in the budget. The board will be appropriating, so upon passage of our budget request, the request will include an appropriation of funds at that time, so on January 1, for planning, design, and easement projects. So that's where it's about 40 million, and then certain construction allowances. So this is work that allows us to do ongoing rehabilitation work in the sewers, for example, and other proactive and emergency work that is needed outside of those projects, that when we have construction projects, we bring those to you throughout the year and you approve those budgets individually for projects when they're ready to be put out to bid. So you can see there the balance for the construction projects is 69 million for 2026. This is just the actual consent decree projects that will be funded in the 2026 budget. So the phase 2B, again, I think it probably warrants a longer discussion to really remind everyone of what it is we're doing in this next phase of the consent decree. But it primarily consists of 2 bundles of projects at our largest treatment plant. So we have our Mill Creek treatment plant and our Little Miami treatment plant that we're delivering 7 projects total at those facilities. And this is the work that will be funded. Some of it's ongoing and continued work that you've already heard about and provided some funding for. And then in addition, we will just be performing additional system repairs and replacements. Some of these were projects that were deferred the last year or 2, and we are now able to bring those forward and proceed with construction. So this is, I think we have 5 pump station projects, 5 pump station projects, 7 replacements, and these are located in neighborhoods like Camp Washington, Over the Rhine, Oakley, North Avondale, Bond Hill, Westwood, and Sims Township. So really able to get some of that core asset management work moving again this year, which is really positive. The 5-year plan is a planning budget, and so you can see there the next 4 years after 2026, we continue to fund the capital budget, and including a pretty expensive year in 2030 that is consistent with the large projects that we're delivering under phase 2B. So this is what we've been working towards in overall, I'm going to get to the rates, but when we're projecting our rates and what the system needs to be able to maintain the operating budget and plan for these capital projects over the next 5-10 years, really looking at what the community can afford and how we can fund these projects is key. So, and at the same time, making sure that we are properly funding the needs of the utility. So, jumping to the rates. Again, we went over this last week, but I do want to make sure that we have discussion about the rates again. I did hear the comments that were received earlier. So what MSD and the county has worked on and what is presented and recommended to the board is an adjustment of our rate structure. So we've been doing a lot of work to look at, previously we were looking at a potential for an impervious surface charge that provided us with a lot of information about our system, about our customers. That we have then since performed a cost of service study, and the cost of service study is something that is done to make sure that your rates are designed to charge customers for the cost of the service that you're providing them. So everything we do from the chemicals needed to treat the wastewater, from the power used to operate pump stations and treatment plants, the billing costs, but then also our users, their rates are based on primarily based on the consumption of water. But we do want to point out that we also take into consideration any flow that comes to our treatment plants that is not metered. So lots of properties, lots of runoff that comes into our system. We know how much is coming to the treatment plant, so we call that our unbilled flow, or in our rate structure, we call that inflow and infiltration, which is abbreviated as I&I. So that is part of our rate structure, and all of our customers do pay a share of that, just like they pay a share of all of our other costs of treatment. And we reevaluated the allocation of I&I in our rates and have determined that based on the information we have today about our system, improvements we've made to our system, as well as industry guidelines, that we recommend adjusting how we account for I&I in the rate structure. This will improve rate equity, and it better aligns with the cost of service for our customers. What this translates to in actual numbers on our rates is that we will be eliminating what has been referred to as a declining block rate, or a high volume user discount. So I'm going to, and before I jump to the next slide, overall, it has been recommended based on financial analysis performed by the county's financial advisors that we do need a 4.5% increase overall for the system to maintain to cover the budgets and the capital improvements needed over the next 5-10 years. Based on this adjustment to the rates, we expect that 4.5%, we will see a modest decrease or a flat rate for most residential customers, and an increase for commercial industrial customers. So I'm going to jump to the next slide and demonstrate what we're talking about there. So the way our rates are structured, everyone is charged a base charge based on the size of the meter that is metering both their water and sewer at their property. Most residential customers are in that first tier of the 5/8 meter. Some are slightly larger, or your multifamilies might be a little bit larger. But that base charge does account for the first 3 CCF, which is 100 cubic feet of water. It's essentially most customers, just to put it in perspective, most single-family residents will use about 3 to 5 CCF of water in a month. But that base charge incorporates that first 3 CF. As soon as you go over that, and not everyone does, but any customer that uses more than that in a month then pays a volume charge or a consumption charge. And currently, so the middle column there on the right, the first block is 3 CCF to 50 CCF. And then as you get higher, so that you're using even more water, your charge is actually going down. That's the current rate structure. Based on the adjustment we're making to our rates to account for the I&I adjustment, we will no longer have 2 tiers there, we will have 1. And because it goes down slightly from the 6.4 in the first block, that's why some customers will see a slight decrease. But any customers who are using that higher volume of water over 50 CCF are going to see an increase to cover that 4.5% revenue increase. But this is the only change we're making, and this will bring in the needed additional revenue to meet that 4.5% increase. So just want to be clear, every customer is not going to see a 4.5% rate increase. When it comes to trying to let people know what that means for them, it's very difficult because, again, our commercial and industrial customers will vary based on their business and whether or not they are higher volume users of water will really depend. If they are higher volume users of water, they could see upwards of 10-15% increase with this change in the rate structure. But again, residential customers are anticipated to stay the same or see a very, very modest decrease that's probably unrecognizable. And with that, again, I rushed through things. Hopefully that's, if you have any questions, I'm happy to jump in on any topic in particular. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I just have one question pertaining to your last slide. So the idea that people will not get an increase next year, most people, residential customers, what should they anticipate in the years moving forward?
Yes, thank you for asking that. So based on the financial analysis that's been performed, and again, as I was showing that planning horizon for our capital program, the anticipated rate increase is to continue to need about 4 to 4.5% annually. And once we make this adjustment, that increase would be more of an across-the-board increase. So a residential customer that doesn't see any increase this year, again, you're not approving anything beyond 2026. But if another rate increase is approved for 2027, that would be across the board and everyone's rates would go up from where they're at today.
Okay, but no increase next year?
Correct. 2026, there would be no increase.
For these residential?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Summer-Dumas.
That was one of my questions because I saw 2026 revised rates and I'm thinking, I don't think you're going to get it going that quickly in 26. But I really, Diana and I had a great talk about sewage, believe it or not, last week.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the commercial customers, when will they be informed of the change of rates? How are you doing that and when will it happen?
So MSD has sent out information about these public hearings to mailing lists, and we've posted that publicly just as we provide other notice. So they have received notice that these hearings are taking place. Presumably all our customers are, and the information is all available that we've presented here to the board. And if it is passed, they will be receiving notice when they get their bills in January. So it's essentially, typically in past years, when the board passes the rate increase in December, it's picked up, I think, in the news and folks hear of it that way. But we're hoping that they've heard of this prior to today's hearing and have had an opportunity to provide comment if they wanted to.
Well, I certainly appreciate you and your staff and Holly working together to try to make this a reasonable compromise, and I never thought I would see this, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Once again, an example of us trying to keep rates as low as possible, but continue to do the unfunded mandated work from the federal government. I mean, I think in the future when we refer to the mandates, we should call them what they are, which is unfunded mandates. It seems to be a theme here today. And we're just bearing the brunt of all of these unfunded mandates. So thank you for the presentation. When's the next public hearing?
Yes, we will be back next week. The public hearing is on Tuesday, December 9th, but it is in the evening at the Board of Elections office. So MSD will have a public hearing and presentation at that time as well.
Thank you. Okay, thanks so much. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Commissioner, we have nothing else in front of us.
Really?
No, I know. It's been a long morning / afternoon. I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer-Dumas?
Yes.
Thank you.